We are live. Welcome. What do I call
Thank
you?
you.
Vanta? Is Vanta
Yeah, yeah,
fine?
yeah. Vanta will do. Vanta will do nicely.
All
That's no
right.
problem. Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen any of the previous interviews, but I don't do introductions, so maybe you can
Fair
quickly
enough.
introduce yourself. That would be great.
I did see part of your interview with I think it was Dark Cell. I saw a
Mm-hmm.
bit of that. That was interesting. Yeah. My name's Vanta. I run a small YouTube channel called Vanta the Sybarite. I used to make mainly Blackpill content, but now I'm kind of branching out into other genres, I guess you'd say. But I do have a vested interest in the plight of incels, I guess you might call it. I do have like a lot of sympathy for the movement, and I will probably maintain that sympathy throughout my whole life. So I'm pretty I don't know bought into the black pill as well, I guess you might say. So that's pretty much everything with me at the moment.
Cool, man. Sounds good. What's your current status, basically? I've seen that you have been in an incel interview. I think also in an incel documentary, also as an incel, right?
Yeah.
So how long ago is that, and has anything changed since then? That will be my question. And also, I didn't see any of the. There seems to be older content of you,
Yeah, there's
but
some older. Yeah.
yeah, I'm not able to find. I didn't have much time, but I didn't wasn't able to find it.
No, no, it's because some of my old stuff is unlisted because there were some like inaccuracies in what I was saying, some stuff I don't agree with anymore, stuff like that. It's not that I've changed my ideas, it's more that I've got more information about a certain topic and then I've come to a different conclusion from the information which I've gathered, and I don't really want to like sit there and remake loads of my old videos, so I just like unlisted them, and
Mm-hmm.
now I make a lot more longer form content which is like very in-depth, talking in more detail about like some more fleshed out ideas which I have.
Mm-hmm.
Um, in terms of the interview was, I believe, about 2 years ago now, I think, or about, yeah, it must be 2 years or maybe just over. I was an incel back then. Now I'm a volcel or voluntarily celibate. So there has been a bit of a change in regards to that. So yeah, I did looks max a bit for quite a while before the interview. I guess I've been looks maxing for like 5 years now, depending on how you want to define looks maxing. But yeah, I'm now voluntarily celibate instead of involuntarily celibate. So yeah.
Interesting.
Mm.
I've you have been recommended to me by many viewers. I've posted under every video I've dropped. I posted a message asking my viewers to recommend me people to interview, and your name came up like a few times at least. And one member of my Discord called Burn, shout out to Burn, he was really in favor of having you on, and he called you, I quote him, high IQ. So
I appreciate that. I appreciate
yeah,
that.
thanks to him for also recommending it. Yeah, and that's how I watched your channel. I think the first one I saw was the podcast episode you were on with. I wrote her name down, but now I don't know where it is. With the young lady by the name of, I don't remember her name. Maybe you can
Hold
help
on,
me out.
let me get up here. Hold on, give me a second. Is it Evelyn Kang?
Yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. So
that was the first thing I saw.
yeah. So I've done a few interviews now. I've done one on TV. I did one with her. That one was really good. We got into a lot of detail with that. Um, and I've done some debates in the past about like black pill issues and stuff like that. And a lot of people, a lot of incels, when they go on TV, they get sort of misrepresented by whatever media organization which they talk to. But I found that I was probably like one of the only people who didn't get heavily misrepresented when they went on TV. Like obviously they got a few things wrong, like they slightly misquoted me when I was talking about a woman, or they didn't, it wasn't even a misquote as much as they didn't give as much context as I would like. But I feel like out of all the incels which I've spoken to, I was really represented the best, and I don't really know why that is, but I'm happy that that's the case. But the general experience when it comes to incels on like TV documentaries is always terrible. They're always quoted out of context. They're always clipped so to make them sound as bad as possible. There's a big thing called framing in media. So, for example, I was watching this documentary with incels, and you can tell that they wanted to portray incels in a negative light, because before they were about to talk to the incel, like the music changed, they showed like a
Yeah.
smashed window before the incel's face came up. They were like trying to put it in the worst framing possible.
Yeah.
And then the guy, when the guy comes on the screen, he doesn't have to say a word, and everybody already thinks this guy's the devil, you know. And it's really annoying. It's a general thing in media to try and paint incels as the bad guy, but it's funny or interesting to me. I don't know if it's funny necessarily. That in academia, there seems to be a certain push to humanize incels. I've seen like academic papers talking about how incels aren't actually far right, they're more left wing, for
Yeah.
example. I've seen academic papers talking about how incels are significantly less violent than the average man or the average person in a given sample size, a given population.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen these research papers talking about how incels aren't on average misogynistic. There are just like one or two or three really misogynistic incels which just post a lot, so it looks like a lot of them are misogynistic. There
Mm-hmm.
are all of these scientific studies which come out, but then the broader mainstream media doesn't cover them. All they do is talk about Elliot Rodgers and then just like get a few screenshots from like incels.is or whatever, post them up on the screen, and then say, "Oh, look at all these villainous, vile, demonistic people," and then that sort of I don't know if this is a common term, but it's what's called like a simulacrum. So pretty much you'll have like a false idea, and then that idea will get referenced back to. So it's sort of like how can I say it? It's when you always reference back to a false idea. If you reference back to that false idea enough, it becomes true, right? Because you just keep on saying, "Oh, look, they did this, but they didn't actually do this." But if enough people think they did this, then they effectively did, because that's how they get treated in society. So there's a lot to say about that, but I kind of went on a tangent there
No
a
worries.
bit from you.
No
Yeah,
worries. That's the format. We have enough time for that.
that's
I
good.
think that's like you made some really good points, and I don't want to bore anyone by just agreeing with everything that you said. Like most of the things I agree with. I think it's one of the reasons I'm even doing this right now is exactly that. Like we have a very sensationalist way of dealing with stuff, and we should change that.
Hmm.
We should talk about the stuff that is a little bit more boring. The guy
Yeah,
that is sitting at home and not being misogynistic and not being aggressive or harming anyone is, yeah, he's a little bit more boring than
yeah,
the stuff they talk about, but I think he's more important, and I think changing his life will change more in society than um, these fringe cases.
yeah, exactly. I agree.
Let's talk about us agreeing is boring, so we have to talk about our
Okay,
disagreements.
sure, sure, sure.
And yeah, you seem like a guy who's really into logic and reasoning, and who tries to like look at all of this in a non-ideological way. You know, even though you consider yourself blackpill, I wouldn't
Mm.
think that you are married to being a blackpill. I think being a blackpiller, I think you, with enough evidence, you could change your mind.
Yeah, I
And
disagree with quite a few things of the Black Pill. We can get into that a
yeah,
bit later.
yeah. I mean, I've watched 2 videos of yours uh because like you don't as you've said, you are doing other stuff on your channel, like you're not only covering incel things. And the first one I saw is the cause and solution to male loneliness slash inceldom. First of all, I really liked like the whole style of the video. It was really cool.
Thanks.
Yeah, let's get into it. Maybe like uh, I'm always a big fan of like someone who's not maybe a scientist presenting the data that scientists have gathered and to
Mhm.
make a narrative out of it. I think it's our job to do so. I think scientists should just collect the data and create the data, and but we have to also think about the data and make sense of it. Maybe could you just give a quick premise conclusion type summary of your main take of what people would mainly take away from the video? For I'm sure that not everyone that sees this right now has seen the video, so, and I don't want to misrepresent it, so maybe you can.
No, yeah, I can do that. The video is quite a long one, so it might
Yeah.
I'll try and summarize it the best I can. So pretty much the problem of inceldom has always existed. There's always been incels. It's hard to say whether it's increased or decreased because we don't really have too many stats on inceldom, on the pervasiveness of inceldom, because inceldom previously was fixed by pillaging. So what would happen was the people who weren't able to create families inside the village or the city or the enclave, whatever you have, doesn't really matter, would go to other cities, villages, whatever it might be, steal their women, and then they would become non-incels through that method. Obviously, we became more civilized. We saw that that wasn't a moral right thing to do. So as time went on, you could say there's been an increase in incels since that doesn't happen anymore, obviously. But I wanted to find out what are the main reasons why incels exist now in the modern era. And I pretty much came to this conclusion. I'll just read out pretty much the conclusion which I came to here. So there is an excess of men in comparison to women, and this problem is only getting worse as time goes on. Women are gaining status in society relative to men and looking mostly for men who have more status than them, meaning women on average are going for a smaller and smaller population of men, and when women don't do this, they form relationships that are hypogamous and are often worse for both the men and the women. So to explain that a bit further, there are more men than women in society because of multiple different reasons. It's because women are aborted at a higher rate in many Eastern cultures. It's because men used to die a lot in war through random. It's called young male syndrome, where men would do weird, reckless, violent actions and then they would die because of them. That seems to be on the decrease. Obviously, men going to war, men going to battle is also on the decrease. There are a lot of different factors behind this, but it seems that when it comes to the dating pool, there are a lot more young men than there are young women, which means just on a pure numbers basis, the men aren't able to get with the women because there's more men than women. And homosexuality on the part of men doesn't dent this whatsoever, because that's one of the critiques which I got about the video. And then women are gaining status in comparison to men in society. Women are really getting better and better at schooling compared to men in society. There are multiple different theories behind this, but pretty much women are dominating men in the universities. They're getting more degrees across the board compared to men. As time goes on, men are still dominating in some fields, but in those fields, women are catching up fairly quickly, and in a lot of other fields, women are already getting more degrees than men, which means that in the status game, women are gaining more status relative to men, which obviously, which leads on to the next thing, which is that women mainly want to date up. They want to date men with higher status than them, which means that the women effectively have a much smaller pool of men to go for, and obviously if you have a smaller pool, there's going to be more outliers of men who aren't in the status range for these women. And when women try and date down, which has become somewhat more common, the relationships are almost always terrible. I'm sure you've heard of hypergamy. The opposite of hypergamy being hypogamy, which is where the woman dates down. These hypogamous relationships are almost always bad for both parties involved. There are multiple different theories behind why they're bad, but I won't go into that too much. But pretty much what happens is they often become abusive. They often form negative patterns of neglect. The man might neglect the woman might neglect the man. There's more cheating involved because the woman is because obviously women are more sought after than men. If there are high status men trying to hit on your woman effectively, your woman is going to be more likely to, I don't know, break under the pressure pretty much, because you're a lower status man, they're a higher status man. If we're going purely off status basis, then you're gonna be on the back foot. So there are multiple different factors which come into play when it comes to these sorts of problems. So all of this combined together means that we are having a very pervasive incel epidemic. There are also other factors which I didn't get into in the video, like Tinder, dating apps, stuff like this, which gives women a plethora of men, but generally these men are only interested in the woman for short-term relationships like hookups. So it's hard to say how much it's hard to factor that in to relationships. It's hard to make a one-to-one comparison of that. And then later on in the video, I'll just talk very briefly about this. I speak about how relationships won't help a lot of incels because it's kind of like out of the frying pan into the fire sort of situation. Because if you're an incel, you're gonna pretty much be on the back foot. You're not gonna have a relationship. You're gonna be romantically inept a lot of the time. You're not going to really know what you're doing, and this is going to lead to all in all you having worse relationships with women who are going to be more experienced than you when it comes to having relationships, and this is going to lead to the relationship being much more likely to fall apart. There are a lot of negative consequences of having relationships. For example, people often speak about how relationships are some of the happiest moments in people's lives, but they don't factor in that when people get out of relationships, it's also the most painful event in a lot of people's lives. People have breakups that are so impactful that a lot of people commit suicide. When it comes to the rates of suicide, relationship-related issues is, I think, top 3 or top 4, and that's almost never spoken about. So there are a lot of downsides to having relationships. And then at the end of the video, I just say maybe we should all, date some AIs and get rid of the real relationships. It's a very base conclusion by me. So, yeah, that's pretty much that's the video summarized.
All right, man. Cool. Okay, so let's maybe get in. There was a lot, but thanks a lot for summarizing it so well. So there's a few smaller ones. There was just a few smaller contentions that I had while watching it, and I just took some small notes, but some of them are really, really minor. You talked about young male syndrome, and you were basically saying that it has been dying down, basically, right?
Mm.
And so my question would be, what's is the amount of risk that they're taking, or is like basically the idea that they're living pretty dangerously? The first thing that came to mind for me was that maybe the things that we are considering as risky are not as physically dangerous anymore, in the sense that it used to be that you broke into a bank, but now people hack their way into the bank. In general, society values intellectual work more than physical work compared to like 50 to 100 years ago, by a lot. Like maybe now taking a risk would be to invest in a shitcoin, where before it was, I don't know, getting to fight and you get the same like social status from it. But maybe you know what I mean. Like I didn't feel like that has been taken into consideration but yeah. What do you think about that?
No, I think that's a fair point. It's hard to sort of I don't know if I'll call them risky, because the whole idea of risk is that you're going to be losing something valuable to you if XYZ goes wrong, right? Like if you invest into a coin which is a bit turbulent, could go up, could go down. It's very hyperbolic. You can't really know where it's going to go. It's risky, I suppose, but you're not risking your life. You know what I mean? You're not risking your health, your safety. So I would say it's a lesser risk. But because I would say I'll give a different sort of hypothesis to what you're saying here. I think that the risk to reward ratio for a lot of activities has increased in terms of the reward which you might be getting. Like let's take for example you robbing the bank, right? Let's say you're a robber back in, I don't know, the 1950s. You got like your henchman or whatever. You got your big crowbar. You're about to go deal some damage, right? So you hop into the place. All right, I might lose a limb. My buddy James might not make it out. But hey, let's give it a go. Let's see what happens, right? So you go into the place, and then one of your friends die. You break your leg, but you get out with the money. So that's how it was previously. But nowadays, you're just one guy, maybe you got your friend with you, you're going to hack into a mainframe or whatever it might be, you're going to steal some money, and then boom, you're out. I would say that the problem, the risk is heavily decreased, and the reward has about stayed the same. So I don't necessarily know if. So I would still say that there has been a decrease in risk-taking behavior for men, but that might just be because there has been a there has been a decrease in risk-taking behavior overall, like the amount of risk-taking behavior that you can commit.
I agree,
Because,
100%. Yeah, that's
yeah,
exactly what I mean. They didn't take the risk for nothing. They took it for certain rewards, and these
yeah.
rewards, to get them now, involve less physical risk and more, we would say, societal risk and
I agree.
financial risk and stuff like that. So just our society has, or the way our economy has transformed, and all of the things we do has transformed in a non-physical way. Just like the money is not there in a physical sense anymore, it's there in a digital form. So it's normal that the risk you take is not as physical anymore as it was before. So I would not attribute this less men doing less risky stuff doesn't have to be a change in behavior in men. It can just be that in general, overall, our life has been less physical, so there's less physical danger as well, right? That would just apply to everything.
I would agree with that. Yeah,
Mhm.
it's an interesting thing. It's hard to say whether young male syndrome is a desire to seek out risky opportunities, risky scenarios, or if it is a desire to seek out the reward for the risky scenario, right? Because there's this idea, for example, in dating, it's like, do you like the thrill of the hunt? Do you like the chase, or do you like what you get at the end of the chase, right? And it's hard to say whether, when it comes to young male syndrome, whether the men who have young male syndrome, whatever you might call it, are seeking the risk or if they're seeking the reward. It's hard to say, because both of them might be beneficial. Like a gambler, right? The gambler, in a sense, is seeking the high of winning, but they're also seeking that suspense of the, I don't know, whether gambling, you're playing slots and then, the slots are spinning, you're like, oh, am I going to get it? Am I not going to get it? Like, are you seeking that thrill, or are you seeking the thrill of victory? Are you seeking the thrill of gaining the money? I don't know if you can even separate these two, but yeah.
That's an awesome point, and I'm gonna pin you down on it later on when we
Okay.
talk about the simulation,
Sure,
about
sure.
the AI
Oh, here
girlfriends.
we go. Yeah.
One thing you haven't mentioned in your whole, what hasn't been mentioned, maybe it's just I'm not really yet into the science, so I wanted to first make a few interviews purely on the experience side, and then get into the scientific parts later on, after like the 6th or 7th conversation I've had. Maybe have an academic on and talk with them directly. But one thing you don't mention at all, like I see the whole idea of, okay, I mean the whole idea of less man than woman. Okay, granted, but it feels like the most important part is that women are now really high status in society, and that just makes the pool of possible mates they want to have very small, right? Like that's even if all the other factors were not there, even if high abortion rates with women would not be the case, and even if we would be exactly 50-50, just that one alone would already produce the incel crisis, right? So, right? That's,
Yeah.
yeah. So, but one thing you kind of mention at the end, but you don't mention in the beginning, is this idea of hypergamy, in a sense of not higher than me, but not greater or equal than me, but in a sense of the top X percentile. So you mentioned that for a second in the apple example when you talk about the best three apples, but before in the build up of the whole problem, I don't hear that at all. And William Costello, right? Is that the name of the scientist? That is, yeah. I feel like he also in the explanations that I've heard him give, I haven't heard that either. This idea of women wanting the top X percentile of men. Is that something that you believe in? Is that something that has been researched and dismissed? you kind of mention it still, but what do you think about that? So what's the deal with that type of hypergamy?
Yeah, so women will always want the top X% of men, the same way that men will always want the top X% of women. The thing is, it's all about supply and demand, effectively, or beggars and choosers, pretty much.
No, wait, one
Women,
second.
yeah,
1 second. I have to interject because you
okay.
say in the same way that women want, the idea is that once you are below the top X percentile, you're not attractive anymore. That's the idea, right? So,
Mm,
and for men, it's like, yeah, if they have the if they don't have the choice, if they have the choice, they take the top X percentile. But if they don't have it, like it's not. It would be okay. They would just go switch down to the top 30% percentile or the top 40
yeah,
percentile, depending on what's available, right? So that's
yeah.
the main difference we're trying to make when we say women are hypergamous in the sense of top X percentile, is that you become automatically unattractive. According to this theory, you become automatically unattractive once you're outside of the top X percentile. So
Yeah, yeah. I would agree with that. I would say that's true. When you're outside of the top percent of available partners, then you're going to become unattractive to women. But for men, it's different. You could say it's different because of a lot of different reasons. You can say it's because men have a decreased disgust sensitivity, which means, for example, how can I say this in a non-crude way? Like you could have a woman that doesn't want to have sex with a really ugly man, but a man doesn't really mind having sex with a with a fairly unattractive woman as much, because women generally have a very high disgust sensitivity when it comes to that kind of stuff. It could be evolutionary, it could be anything. It's probably evolutionary. The other reason is because simply beggars can't be choosers. Men don't have the option to go for these high status women, because the high status women will never let these men see the light of day effectively. So there will always be a divide where women are able to get the top whatever percent of men. So that's what they do. And if you're outside of that top percent of men, the women, generally speaking, pretty much think that, hey, why would I get with a 2 out of 10 when there's a 7 out of 10 here?
but
It's kind of, yeah.
doesn't this a little bit, then I don't get like these two points. Either we say we have an incel crisis because women are so educated that they seek out men that are higher and or equal to their status, and that's why we have an incel crisis. But if they already want the top X percentile in a polygamous society, there would be an incel crisis no matter what the status of woman is, right? Like no matter if they're highly educated, well paid, doesn't matter, right? So the incel crisis would still be there if they're only if they're only attracted to the top X percentile. So
Oh, I
that
see. Okay.
whole
Yeah.
idea doesn't make any sense anymore. So it has to be
Mm.
either one or the other. I'm not, by the way, I'm not defending one or the other. I'm just asking, like, what's your opinion? Maybe I have an opinion on the facts of the matter, but right now I'm just trying to figure out what
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
position is. So, how does that
Yeah.
make sense? I
So
feel
I
like it
would
doesn't.
say over, yeah, I would say over time, I would agree with obviously what I said previously. I don't think it's always been so stable that women would only want the top X percent of men. I think that top X percent of men has gradually decreased, because what's most important is the hypergamous aspect, is the man having more status than the woman. So these two ideas have kind of combined together,
Sorry, can
because
you
women.
just explain to me what you mean when you say the top X percentile has disappeared?
So yeah, I can explain that. So
Yeah.
pretty much previously, women had a lot less status in society, right? So that meant that women would be going for, I don't know, the top 50% of men, let's say, for example. And then I believe that these ranges are somewhat dynamic, but there might be evidence showing me that that's not the case. But as women have gained status in society, that top percentile, previously 50%, has decreased to whatever it is now. I'll just have to give conjecture. I don't know the exact percentages, but it's mainly about hypergamy. I don't think the addition of the top X percentile is really necessary. I think it's more just about the hypergamous aspect when it comes to hypergamy. I think the hypergamy is really the biggest thing. You could make arguments about the top whatever percentile of men, but it would be I don't think it would be too relevant to what we're talking about.
I think it's really relevant because the solution you're basically dismissing is the idea, like you said that in the video. You said, okay, so why don't we just as men try to overachieve women and just get better like than all the women, and then the incel crisis would be solved, right? That's the question you're asking. And you say, no, that's not true, because every time you increase your status, you're pushing somebody else out of it, which would be the idea of hypergamy in a sense of top X percentile. That's also been something that I've talked about in the past with my partners of the conversation, but you have to decide there, which one is it? Like, is the woman not wanting? We have a woman in society. Okay. She is rejecting an incel, and we have to decide, why is she rejecting the incel? Is she rejecting him because he's not greater or equal than her, or because he is inside the men's hierarchy, not the woman included, but inside just the men's hierarchy? Is he not in the top X percentile? Which one is it? And if you say both, which one do you have to remove such that she's attracted to him? Right?
I see. Yeah, I think when I made this video a while back, but I believe when I was speaking about the idea of improving yourself, I think I was talking about maxing, as in like looks maxing, whatever it might be.
Sure.
So when we're talking about maxing, the idea of, I was talking mainly about looks maxing. When we're dealing with the idea of maxing and looks, what's mainly happening here, that's not a status battle between men and women, so to say. That's more women going for the most attractive men. And if everybody gets more attractive, that doesn't mean that the women are going to, how can I say, the spectrum of attractiveness stays the same across time. Like the example which I gave in that video, I think was the example of height, right? So how previously 5'6" would have been tall, however now 5'6" is short. The frame of reference has changed, where tall has become short, or sorry,
it's a great example. It's a good example.
Yeah. So the frame of reference. Yeah, so the frame of reference has changed here over time, in the same way that if everybody was to max, if everybody was to become more attractive, what was previously seen as attractive will now be seen as ugly or less attractive. So the point I was trying to make here was about the status, I guess, in terms of looks, not status in terms of I don't know, monetary, not status in terms of I don't know, societal status, I guess you might say.
But
so
we can just stay with that example. It's a really great example. So we have a guy, he is 5'6", okay? And he wants to date a woman who is 5'8", okay? So he is both not in the top X percentile height-wise, and also shorter than the woman, right? In that case. So now the question is, why is she not attracted to him? Is she not attracted to him because he's not in the top X percentile? So if we would just remove all the guys that are taller than him, and now he's the tallest guy in town, would she start to get attracted to him? We now reduce attraction completely to height. Okay, it's the
sure, yeah.
Blackpill fantasy times 1 million. Okay,
yeah.
So is she now like? Will she now be attracted to him, or would it be enough to just give him a leg surgery and make him taller than her, and then she would be attracted to him? And in both cases, for both cases, if we choose one or the other, we have solutions. In the first case, the solution is heighten his legs, right? Give him a surgery. And in the second case, it's monogamy, right? but you manage to get no solution, zero solution, by just mixing these two up. And if we find a solution for one, you switch to one frame. And if you find a solution for the other, you switch to the other frame. So that's the big problem I had with that way, because both of these singularly are solvable.
So hold on, let me just clarify the example. So the guy in the town, he's the tallest guy in the town, or no? Or he was just short?
At the beginning, he's short.
Okay.
And he's 5'6".
Okay.
And the woman is 5'8", and all the other guys are taller than him.
Okay, so he's just short. All right. Okay.
He's both. He's basically shorter than her, and also
and shorter than everyone else.
Shorter than everybody else. Yeah.
All right, got you. Yeah. So we have this short guy, and then you're asking me, why isn't this short guy attractive to the woman?
Yeah, which one is it? Because if it's one or the other, we can solve both of these actually.
Sure. So if the short guy is in the example where the short guy is both shorter than the woman and shorter than everybody in the town,
yes.
the reason why he's not attractive to the woman is more because he's the shortest. That's a tough one, actually, because it's such a paradigm shift, because now we're living in. I guess
it's a perfect example. We could replace it with basically anything else.
Yeah, so the man is obviously unattractive to the woman because the man is shorter than the woman, but just me thinking about it, if he was to live in a world where it was common for, if he was to live in a world where he was the tallest guy, but he was still shorter than the woman, then he would be attractive to the woman.
Okay, exactly, and we can create that world, right? There will be the world where there is polygamy, and where there is monogamy, right? That used to be like that. So all the tall guys are being married away, and there is just the short guy left, right? So that's the basis for monogamy. Like, that's how it used to work.
So wait, say that one more time. I think I might be getting a bit confused here. Just say that last bit one more time for me.
So one solution is to make him to give him surgery and make him taller than the girl. Okay.
Okay.
And the other solution is to just get rid of all the tall guys.
Okay.
And how do we get rid of all the tall guys? By marrying them, for example, right? So they're not even an option anymore in the romantic dating market. But that's how it used to be. So imagine, like, I'm originally from the Middle East, okay? And you have this 2-3 villages close to each other, and basically everybody gets married at some point. Like 95% of people get married. And there is just maybe very few people are left without getting married, right? And at first, like, when you look at a few age ranges, and like the tallest, most handsome guy with wealthy family, he gets to choose, a lot. He has way more options, but eventually he's married, and maybe he cheats on his wife, sure, okay, but all the other women in the village that might wanted to be with him will stop basically wanting him as a partner because he's not available anymore. That's just how monogamy works, right? Okay, so basically we've eliminated, and at some point all the taller guys than this guy will not be available anymore. They're just going to be, he's going to be the tallest guy.
Yeah. Okay, now I understand what you're saying. Yeah, that would 100% work. So the 10 goes with the 10, the 9 goes with the 9, effectively. Yeah, so everybody's matched up 1-to-1. Yeah, sure, that would 100% work. But but how would we implement that?
I mean, that's basically Jordan Peterson's solution, right? So he wants to go back to culturally enforced monogamy. So before it was like religiously enforced monogamy, which we could also argue is culturally enforced monogamy. But you could just say, guys, like, come on, let's get back to monogamy. This is not a good state in which we are, and it's not good for women, it's not good for men. I mean, you don't have to argue for sex robots, right? Like, you could also say, let's go back to monogamy, basically.
Yeah.
I mean, you might say it's not realistic, that's why I prefer having the sex robots, but I think you would at least have to be honest
You can
enough
talk to
to.
the robots as well. You don't just have to.
No, we will
No problem.
definitely,
Yeah.
we will. I keep it up for the end.
No,
But I
that's
mean,
fine.
I think I would be fine with you, for example, saying monogamy is also an option, but I think it's not a good option or it's not realistic. But I'm just bothered by this logical fallacy of like saying that this is a direct conclusion that monogamy is not even a solution, and it's totally a solution for the problem.
Yeah, I would 100% say that it's a solution to the problem, but it's about possibility versus plausibility, right? It's about the available. So it is possible for there to be monogamy, widespread monogamy, religiously enforced monogamy, culturally enforced monogamy, however you want to do it. That's a possible outcome. It's possible for that to happen, but I don't see how it would be plausible. Like in order for something to be plausible, you have to. You can advocate for it, that's fine, but I feel like that's somewhat shallow advocacy. Even if you're implementing it in your own life, what plan would we put forward in order to achieve widespread culturally enforced monogamy, for example? Like what 1, 2, 3, 4 step plan would we do in order to achieve this?
I don't know. It's not really important for me. Like the important part is for me that it's not the idea that it's not it's not solvable. That bothers me, right?
Mm.
So it is
Yeah,
solvable. Just like maybe you don't like the solution, and that's
I do
okay.
like the. I think
I
the
mean,
solution is great. Yeah.
right? Like so, but we can talk about like that's a totally topic in and of itself. I think we could spend another podcast just on is monogamy, how would we do that, how is that possible, is that even desirable, do we want that, etc., etc., for who is it good. But that's a whole different discussion, and I mean we can and maybe we should have it at some point, but just that bothered me that you're basically switching between these two frames, and by doing that you create a situation where there is no solution because you have these two frames that are in effect simultaneously.
Yeah, yeah, I would agree with everything you're saying here. I would let me give this analogy. So let's say we're stranded on a not desert island. Let's say we're stranded on a tropical island. Let me make it a bit more habitable, right? Stranded on a tropical island. You got you and me, and we got a few other people. And then we came in on the plane. The plane is now completely wrecked. Pretty much everybody survived. Let's say it like that. And then so I'm saying, okay, then. What's our best way to get back to the island? And I say, oh, we could set up some. Do we have any flares? We set out some flares. Wait for some time. Wait until like we know that another airplane's gonna come flying this way. Blah blah blah. We set up a flare, whatever it might be. Now I feel like your solution is, oh well, why don't we just build a plane and then fly back? But my problem with that is, sure, I agree. Building a plane and flying back will 100% solve the problem. There's no doubt in my mind that building a plane and flying back will solve the problem. But how in the world do we build a plane, right? So I would say in these sorts of situations where the solution is effective and 100% and will 100% work in 100% of situations, a solution can be effective, but and possible, but still be completely implausible, and that's
So
the
you
problem
think
which I have. Like,
it's just as implausible for us to get back to monogamy as it is for people stranded on a desert island to rebuild a Boeing 737? I mean, like that's come
well,
on, that's like like that's I don't think
yeah,
that's
I
fair.
agree, I agree. Yeah, I agree. It's hyperbole. I'm not
Yeah.
making a one. It's obviously a very exaggerated example. It's nowhere near a 1-to-1. But the point I'm trying to make
I
here
mean, one we could argue
is,
is physically impossible, right? Like we
well,
could
no,
argue
you
that
probably build a plane. I don't know.
wait.
You can. It's possible. It's possible to build a plane. I don't know how you do it, but like if you're smart enough, you probably figure it out. I don't
Yeah,
know. If
but
you
I
ever
would
watched
know how to. But I would know how to get monogamy, right? You just have to convince enough people to do it. Like, and
sure.
I would argue that we are still pretty monogamous. When we might not be monogamous in a sense of for a lifetime, right? But most people still want monogamy. Like, we still live in that time. I mean, we are a polygamous society in a sense of over a lifetime, right? So over our lives, we are polygamous, but most people are still pretty monogamous. I would say we are still like, most people still want one partner and they're fine with it, right?
Yeah, serial monogamy, pretty much. Yeah, we have a lot of singular partners. Yeah, but then my question would be, how do you convince people? Because when I'll let you answer that question just after I say this little short thing. When I think about solutions, what I think about mainly is how effective is the solution at dealing with the problem, and then I think about how plausible is this solution, right? And I think the AI solution, I don't want to do it before we talk about it properly, but I think the AI position is both extremely plausible and fixes the solution very well. That's why I gave that example. That's why I gave that solution.
Cool. Yeah.
I would agree that the monogamy answer solves the problem entirely. I would think it's a perfect solution, but I also agree that it's a possible solution. But I don't agree that it's a plausible solution because I don't know how you would convince people to become monogamous. I agree that it's possible, but I don't know how you would be able to do it.
But that is
my disagreements is purely on an implementation basis. I have no problem with your solution itself. I just have a problem with the implementation of it.
That's totally fine. Like I accept all of those, and I will not even get into the topic of how we would do it, because I feel like the only way, we should not start a dishonest way of talking about solutions, because it should be like all of the possible ways should be in front of us. And even if I would grant you that it's as difficult as building a Boeing 737 on the beach, I would even, like, in a theoretical way, I would even say even that has to be on the table, right? Like even that has to be talked about as a possible solution. Like all possible solutions should be laid out in front of us, and then we can also talk, because it's not like the AI solution is a perfect solution. It's like you even agree with that it's not a perfect solution. No solution in the real world in an empirical way is no empirical solution is a perfect solution. So at the end of the day, we have to look at everything. And that was just my only contention with it, basically.
I think what you're saying here is fair. Let me change the example with a stranded island a bit. Let's say you say that we should build a boat, for example, and then that is a more plausible example. But even building the boat, I feel like I'm giving you a bit too much charity, in all honesty.
But
because I feel
I get you. You don't think it's possible. You don't think it's possible.
I do. Well, yeah. I don't even think I need another analogy, actually, because I feel like you understand what I'm saying. Anyway,
I get you. Yeah. You don't think it's plausible, but other people might think it's really plausible, and just it being not plausible, you would at least have to be as transparent enough about it, instead of implying there is no logical possible other way, because you construct these theories like you premise conclusion, therefore there is no other solution, and that feels really, either you made a little mistake, or I don't think you made it like in a on purpose, like, but that's just not following, right? So
if anybody was to come to me and give like a plausible conclusion to achieving wide-scale enforced monogamy, then I would I don't know, tip my hat to them and then say, hey, I don't know. I mean, there you go. But I still do like my AI conclusion.
No, wait, that was before your AI conclusion. That was basically, you came to your AI conclusion because you said,
oh, in the video, yeah.
So you're saying there is no solution here. Like, there is nothing there to look for. Because if you do X, Y is going to happen. If you do A, like, something else is going to happen, and both are not bringing us to the right conclusion. Therefore, there is no conclusion, and there is no solution, and that's the problem I have, because there is a solution. It's not logical. It's not illogical to think of a solution there, and you're basically obfuscating that there is a solution there by switching between the two frames of absolute hypergamy and relative hypergamy.
I wouldn't say that's exactly correct. After I spoke about the maxing portion of my video, I then spoke about a section of my video called romanticized romance. And then I spoke about all the disadvantages which come from having long-term relationships. And I feel like those two together led me to the conclusion of the AI relationships, because the AI relationship would be preferable to, would not have the disadvantages of the real relationship. For example, the pain which is induced by breaking up. For example, the possibility of cheating. For
That's a
example, the necessity of having arguments in relationships in order for the relationship to be healthy. The chance of you breaking up and then you taking drastic measures in order to remedy the situation, the chances of abuse, the chances of neglect, all of these negative things which happen in relationships, the fact that 80% of relationships fail. All of this together, combined with my previous points, led me to the conclusion of AI. It wasn't just the first thing which we spoke about.
I agree. You have other points as well. We can move on to that. Relationships. You have not been in a relationship yet, right?
I have. It was a short one though.
Okay. Do you think at all that I have a limited way of having insights into the topic of inceldom because I've never been in this situation?
Well, you've never been an incel, you mean?
Yes. Is that limiting my
Maybe a bit, but
my
again, it's
capacity
hard to.
of intellectualizing the problem?
I think that for some people you really have to be in the situation to understand it, but I think that other people can get a good grasp of the situation not being in the situation. It might be like an empathy sort of thing, but I feel like you have a pretty solid grasp of the understanding. The fact that you're interested in the issue means that you probably have a good understanding of the issue itself, right? So I wouldn't say necessarily that you're like an outsider or whatever, and you can't understand it. I would just it would have to depend on what I've heard you say and stuff like this. Like you can tell, it's more common with women. You can tell. Oh, what did I see? I saw a Discord screenshot of this woman on Discord. This like Discord woman who hops the Discord server. I don't know, talking to men, whatever it might be. And then she was annoyed because she had too many messages from men who wanted to talk to her. And then somebody in the comments was like, oh, I wish I could just. A man in the comments was like, oh, I wish I could have like a fraction of that attention from women. And then the girl was like, oh, I wish I didn't even have any of this attention, right? It's like you're so divorced from the situation of men that you can never understand what it's like to be a man. But I feel like that's more common with women and like very attractive men, like super like 10 out of 10, 9 out of 10 men. I would say like the average Joe can sort of understand it if they take some time to look into it.
Thank you for the compliment. I'm just
Yeah, I think
kidding.
you get it. But
Yeah, I get it. Let's say I have a simulator. Okay, I'm able to put myself on a simulation every day, and I can live a whole life in it. Okay, so in one day I live a whole life, and I can control everything in this life. What do you think this life would look like at day 365 after a year of doing this every day?
For me or for you?
For everyone.
Okay.
So how would it look like on day one, maybe?
So on day one, you're gonna have a power fantasy. You're gonna be like blowing up planets. You're gonna be doing whatever you want to do. You're gonna be Superman. You're gonna be flying into the sun. You're gonna be doing whatever, right?
Exactly.
On day two,
day two as well, right?
Yeah, day two, you're probably gonna tone it down a bit. Maybe you only fly into one sun instead of 10. You know, you're gonna tone everything down a bit. And then as time goes on, you're probably gonna become more, I would say, relaxed. I guess you might say. Yeah, you're just gonna slow everything down a bit. Your life is gonna become a lot more calm. It's gonna be a lot less drastic. Yeah, I would say, and then after 360, after a whole year of doing this, you
Like
probably would have.
imagine every day is a lifetime. Like that's
Oh,
365 lives that you live there.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Every day is a lifetime.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, in that situation, after living that many lifetimes, I don't really, I don't know. You might, it would depend from person to person. I could imagine somebody still being enthralled by that idea of power and trying to get power through different novel ways. Like, I don't know, he might become like a head chef at an alien restaurant or something. Like he uses different outlets for his power. And I could imagine somebody else just like being a carpenter or whatever it might be, just like making clay pots. They could just be, they could find happiness and fulfillment and solace in like the small things of life. And there could be another person who enjoys and will always enjoy that extravagance. But I think a good one-to-one of this would be like video games, for example. Video games, you can practically choose and play whatever video game you want. So in some ways, you're able to live vicariously through these video games. You can do pretty much whatever you want, depending on what game you play. Like
Well,
Minecraft is a great example of this, actually.
there is a problem there, I think,
Mhm.
because video games you cannot do what you want because it's very limited. Like
Yeah,
you cannot
yeah, yeah,
simulate everything with a video game. And
yeah,
but
yeah,
if we
yeah.
could, I think we would to a certain extent.
Yeah, I would agree with that. But I would just say, like, the example of, like, let's say, like, super mega Minecraft or whatever would be a good, not a one to one, but would be a good comparison to this. Like in Minecraft, you can nearly do. Obviously, you can't do whatever you want, but it's an open world system. You can build like pretty much wherever you want. You have a lot of creativity and a lot of outlets, especially with mods and stuff like this. However, people still find enjoyment in Minecraft after years and years and years of playing the game because there's always new novelty which can be tacked onto your experience through mods, through, I don't know, um, you might through different restrictions which you can put on yourself, stuff like this, you know. So I would say
Don't you?
that,
Yeah.
yeah, that's pretty much it.
Don't you think that I'm pretty sure that after day 100, every life they would live would be just like totally regular life. Nothing, and to such an extent that they would even make themselves forget that they are in a simulation, because you do it at day one, you're all powerful, almighty, and then basically you get bored of it pretty fast, I think. And then you would add some small negative things into it, right? You would first make everything perfect, like everything really great, and then this greatness becomes kind of dull, and then you start adding like minor tweaks into it, like minor randomness, and you start giving up certain amounts of like certain percentages of control, and then at some point, like you give up so much that you realize you can give up as much as you want because you are basically in control because nothing's going to happen to you. So at that point, just to have this risk left, you have to make yourself forget that this is a simulation, right? So
Is this the Alan Watts argument?
I'm not sure. I don't know.
Okay, yeah, carry on. Sorry, I didn't mean
I've
to,
read
yeah.
about this like probably 8-9 years ago. Don't ask me where I read about this, but it has been
Okay,
it has stuck in my mind. And well, I'll Google it. I'll Google it after this. I want to know where I got this from because I know that I read this somewhere, and I'm pretty sure that that's how it's going to be. And I mean, would you agree, first of all, that this idea of people getting bored and they need the ups and downs in order to feel the ups, that it's not possible to feel the ups if you just have ups, that it's not possible to feel them anymore?
Oh yeah, 100%. I don't think that anybody just wants. I don't like to use the word perfect. I don't think that anybody would want to have a life with no troubles. I think that there's a really, really good quote from Schopenhauer, and I'm going to paraphrase a bit. But he said that if every man was to attain everything he wanted, if every Jack was to attain his Jill in the same, then then man would become ravenous and pretty much turn insane, in the same way that we need pressure from the atmosphere, and if we weren't to have it we would pretty much explode. We need negative experiences in order to keep ourselves sane in order to be human. I think that negative experiences are what I think that the negative is a precursor to the positive. If you get rid of all the negative, you get rid of all the positive too, and then you're just there in a state of limbo and boredom, which is completely
So I think
anyone.
we're pretty much on the same page here, right?
Yeah. I think we agree. Yeah.
In the exact same way, I think, like, and I mean, I'm pretty sure that this AI girlfriend thing that you're talking about, and now we're talking about it. Now we can.
Here we go.
Here we go. Yeah. I think it's going to. It's totally like something that's going to be a real thing. I don't know how fast. I don't know in what capacity. I don't know if I like it. I think I don't, but it doesn't matter. Like, who cares if I like it or not? But I think like the most desired for girlfriend on the market, the most desired for AI girlfriend on the market is going to be just like the one that you were shitting on in the part where you're talking about relationships, right? Like that's the situation you wanted to avoid by building an AI robot girlfriend is going to be the most sought for product on the market.
I see.
And that therefore I don't agree with your idea that you are solving a problem by giving this AI robot, because it's not a problem. It's simply not a problem. It's even the most asked for product.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point.
Sorry, just example, 1 second. Product meaning not the woman, the relationship. The relationship is the most sought for. The real fucked up, annoying relationship is the most sought after product, will be the most sought after product. Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you.
No, that's fine. No, I think that's a really good point. I think it's very interesting how, like, in the future, I don't think that these AI companions will be, how could I say it? I don't think that people will be saying, all right, so I want I think there's a loss of engagement, a loss of fun when you make everything predictable. When it comes to relationships, when it comes to everything, so it's just like no, I don't think people are going to ask for a AI companion which is never going to say no to them, which is going to submit to their. It might be fun for a bit, like with the example of us having full power. It might be fun for a bit. You might fulfill some fantasy, do whatever you need to do, get out your system, bing bang bosh, you get that done, right? But I think on a long-term scale, I think you do have a point. However, I also think that there is a medium point here which can't be achieved in this reality, right? So, for example, you might want a little bit of chaos, right? You might want some arguments here and there. You might
Definitely.
want, I don't,
love that.
yeah, sure, definitely. You're definitely going to want some arguments here and there. You're definitely going to want some disagreements. You're definitely going to want a little bit of turmoil and stuff like this. You don't want a smooth sailing relationship because that's just boring, to put it simply. But also, you don't want a hyper turbulent sort of relationship where you never know what's going to happen. You want to sort of walk a tightrope in a way between chaos and order, I guess you might say. And I don't know to what extent you can walk that tightrope within. Sorry, I think that AI relationships and AI partners are not going to be mere replicas of a bad choice of words, mere copies of real life women. I think that they are going to be, and I don't think they're going to be this perfect subservient, I don't know, the romanticized like trad wife whatever sort of idea. I think they're going to be somewhere in the middle, where there's going to be a bit of turmoil, there's going to be a bit of unpredictability, but also there's going to always be I don't think anybody would program, or some people might. I shouldn't say anyone. I think it'll be fairly rare for a AI girlfriend that has the possibility to cheat on you to be common. I don't know if that would be common. Maybe it would be. I'm not too sure, but I would doubt that would ever be the case. I think
what's the point of not getting cheated on? Like, how can you like be happy about not getting cheated on if she can't, right? If there is no way, like, you get the appreciation, like the reason why you're so hurt by it is because you were under the assumption that she was able to do it and didn't do it because she didn't want to lose you, or she loves you and she cares for you. That's the reason why you're so heartbroken, right?
Yeah, I would agree. I think there is a certain beauty in the ability for someone to cheat on you and then choose not to do so. I think that in and
Yeah.
of itself is like a virtuous characteristic. But also, I think that the potentiality or when the cheating actually happens, if it does happen, I don't know if the disgust which comes from that cheating is worth the beauty which comes from the potentiality of the cheating, if that makes sense. I don't know if these were one to one, and everything I've looked into would say that these aren't a one to one. For example, cheating being some of the like most painful experiences which people go through. Is the pain, is the beauty, okay, so is the guaranteed beauty, I guess it's not even guaranteed, is the beauty which comes from not cheating worth the pain, the potential pain that could come from cheating? I don't
Mhm.
know. I think that's a difficult philosophical question, but I
That's,
think for a lot of people, especially people who have been cheated on, I think that the pain far outweighs the pleasure for them.
I mean, that's like the whole reason why I was wondering if you think that my lack of experience has any implications on my judgments and on my intellectual capacities of understanding the issue. uh I was kind of hoping you say yes, then I would have less I would feel less bad about saying like what I feel, like what I think, because I
Mm.
think that many in the incel community have difficulties grasping this feeling of um, contradiction between having a worse pain, like this idea of being able to weigh these two things and to compare them and to make a rational decision and to then say, okay, it's not worth it. Like all of these things, like is feels like someone only can say if they've never experienced it, right? Like this idea. I've talked about this in the previous episode. I don't know with who this was, but I think it was with Darkcell.
Mm.
This, they're asking parents what their favorite time of the day is, and they basically almost all of them say the time I spent with my kids. But then when
Mm.
they actually log their amount of pleasure that they're experiencing while being with their kids, it's like horrible. It's like the worst time they have during the
Okay, that's
day.
interesting.
And
Mm.
that's like the exact same principle, I think, here. Like, even if you lock your joy amount of joy over the whole time you were with your girlfriend, I know it for myself. I'm pretty sure if I would have locked the my amount of pleasure that I'm experiencing all the time, it would be a net negative probably.
Mm.
But it's still like the best thing. Like it's still, I can still objectively say it's like the best thing. So yeah, that's
Yeah, I would
yeah.
say, yeah, I would say that that's somewhat hard to compare, I guess. Like if you have one example where you have the parents saying that the best time of the day was spending time with their children, and then you would actually log that and then see that, hey, the time which they spend with their children isn't actually the best time.
It's the worst.
In a lot of, yeah, it's the worst time.
Yeah.
It's the worst time. You would say that there is a some sort of mistake or not cognitive dissonance, but yeah, let's say it's a mistake on the part of the parents. They say that their best time is spending it with their children, when in fact it's not the best time. So you would say the parents are mistaken. But in a way, does that mistake matter? Is that mistake a good thing? Because implicitly, when we speak about mistakes, we assume that the mistake's obviously going to be a bad thing. But in this example, is it a bad thing that the parent made that mistake? I don't know. So to kind of tie this back to the AI relationships and all this sort of stuff, I think that if someone, I think that when it comes to the average person, I think there is infinite unpredictability. They can pretty much do, when it comes to relationships, they can pretty much do anything in the bounds of the relationship. They could cheat on you, they could do whatever you want, and that in a way is what makes a relationship beautiful. But I
Or
feel like when we
valuable.
go to the valuable, yeah, or valuable. And I feel like when we go to the however, I feel like when we go to the edges of these ideas, I think that the value, the disgust outweighs the value. So let's say instead of cheating on you, now we have okay. So let's say you have your AI girlfriend or your AI partner, and then you tick the little box which says this AI can have the possibility of cheating on me. Yeah, so you tick that box because you feel like that is a valuable characteristic to have in a partner, the possibility for them to cheat on you, because them not cheating on you leads to a certain sense of value, a certain sense of beauty in the relationship. However, there's another box under that, and then that box says has the possibility to cheat on you with your best friend. And you're like, well, okay, I don't know about this. And then there's another one underneath it, and then it says has the possibility to cheat on you, I don't know, with your brother or something like that. And they're like, whoa, okay, hold on, okay. I like a little bit of I don't know what you call it. I like a little bit of turbulence. I like a little bit of risk. But this is too much, right? I feel like that the ability to not tick that box is only available in AI and synthetic relationships, because in the real world they can do whatever. You can make predictions about what they are going to do, and these predictions oftentimes are right. Like you can often tell from the quality of your partner whether they're going to maybe not cheat on you, but cheat on you with your best friend. I don't know. Maybe you can tell that bit, but you can never be 100% certain. AI and synthetic relationships allows you to have this 100% certainty, and it allows you to create a barrier at the risk level which you want. It allows you to not go past that risk level, because I believe at some point past your, I believe that the definition of the outer bound of your risk, I don't know, your risk barrier, whatever you want to call it, is where the value, is where the disgust from the person committing that action outside of that outside of your risk range, committing that action, that disgust overrides the value or the beauty which comes from the ability of them to commit that action. That was a lot of words. I don't. Hopefully, yeah, you get what I mean.
I intellectually totally get what you mean, like,
Mm.
but since I'm listening to this way, like this black pill way of seeing the world, I see like that in everywhere I look, I see like a big stance against life, basically, like a really anti-life stance. It can be really dark, but it can also be like you have a lot of anti-natalists, and
Mm.
also this idea that it's okay to, why does it matter if you're in a simulation or what, is a pretty anti-life stance, right? It's the
Yeah, could you?
mildest form of like the idea of, we could just like, basically the idea of an AI girlfriend is not that far away, because at some point you would like to switch off the knowledge about that not being a real girlfriend, right? Like it would be everything you said, like the perfect girlfriend, the way you want it, would be even better if you would just switch off the fact, like the knowledge about you having programmed that girlfriend. Like that would be like the ultimate experience, right? To have forgotten
Yeah,
that
yeah.
you even had the girlfriend. So, and then to extend that more, even, and which you also do in your video, like you extend that even to like your whole life being a simulation, basically. I think that's a mild form of suicide, right? Like that's a really mild form of like like flipping your past existence into past and future, and to break that continuity of consciousness and of recollection of what's happened. Um, and that really like makes me think that there is some really, it's not just intellectual, but it feels like it's more of a lens through which, like a really anti-life and experience valuing, like being anti-life is anti-valuing experience, right? Like I value
Yeah, yeah,
experience. The
mm,
reason why I'm talking like this about a relationship is because I value the painful experience as well. I don't just see it as a negative. I see it as also having an amount of positivity in it.
yeah. I think I can understand what you're saying. I think what you would call anti-life or life, pro-life, anti-life, whatever you want to call it. I think I would call it sentimentality, anti-sentimentality versus pro-sentimentality. There's, for example, you could say, I guess you could say it's intellectualizing it a bit. Like I could say, oh, I don't want to have a partner in the real world because of XYZ reason, and then I like make a big list and stuff like this. That would be it could be true, but it would be a very unsentimental way of looking at it. Right? You're just looking at it purely on pros and cons. You're almost like analyzing it like a computer, I guess you might say. It is a somewhat unhuman way to analyze the world, to analyze people's situations, because that's simply not how people do things, right?
But you also
And
attribute the value of an experience is purely determined by the amount of pleasure you get from that experience, right? That will be the calculation.
to an extent, it's hard to say because it has to be over time. Like, for example, someone dying in your life might be a good experience for you over a long period of time. Because I've had it happen multiple times. Because I'm a personal trainer, that's my job. I've had multiple times people come up to me and then I ask them, "Hey, why did you hire me as your personal trainer?" And then they say, "Oh, my uncle died, and I just realized how valuable life is." So for example, that could be like a very negative experience leading to a very positive experience. And I would say, in that example, it's kind of hard to say for the individual. Um, you have to do it over a fairly long period of time, as long a period of time as possible in order to get a response. But I agree, generally, it's mostly about pleasure maximization. Yeah,
But
I would say
do you
that.
see how you only manage to give it a positive bent by bringing in a positive consequence or a positive externality that follows from that negative experience? The way I see it is not only can this happen, what you say, I agree, yeah, there can be positive consequences, but I also value just having the pain in and of itself, in the same way that I like eating spicy food, that I like watching a horror movie, that I like going on a roller coaster, that I like bungee jumping, right? You know, like all of these things, like they are and in the same way, a really big heartbreak has a value in and of itself, not only because I'm getting smarter from it or because it has some negative externalities. Life is precious in and of itself, and experience of pain is a um, is it shows that there is life. So it's
Mm,
a marker for life, and that's what makes it valuable in and of itself for me. Like and I think for most people.
I wonder about that. I wonder if it is for most people. I'm not too sure. It could be a cultural thing. It could be because I'm so in the Blackpill sphere, black pillow sphere, whatever you want to call it. I think this way. It's hard to say, but I do see what you're saying here. The negative brings value, but just because it needs no reason for its value. Just by its existence, it brings value. You don't need to justify its existence. You don't need to qualify its existence. It's positive because it happened.
Not because of
Regardless
itself,
of
because it's attached to life, because life is so innately attached to the negative experience. I mean, the premise, the axiom basically on which all humans operate is that life is precious to a certain extent, I think.
yeah, I
And
would agree. Yeah, I think it's true.
so, and the preciousness of life gives the preciousness to the painful experience because it's part of life.
Yeah, yeah, I would agree. Well, I wouldn't agree actually,
It shows that there is
but
life.
I see. Yeah, I see where you're coming from with that. I would say I'm not really too sure why I'm like this particularly, but I can't even say why I disagree with you. because I don't know exactly. It's just it's almost as if I might be missing something, you might have something which I don't have, whatever it might be. But I just don't feel that way. I don't feel that like I remember I was talking to someone, and then I was talking to somebody who was interested in philosophy, and then I brought up the interesting idea, and I said, isn't it interesting that the entirety of existence, everything that we've built as humans, is based upon the unsubstantiated claim that existence for humans is preferable to non-existence, that it is good for us to exist. And I brought that point up, and then they were just like, oh, I guess, I don't know, I never really thought about it like that. And these are like, I don't know how to say it. I feel that there is a sort of questioning of life, which I have, and a lot of, I guess, other black pillars have, a lot of philosophers have. I found this very commonly in philosophy, that is very rare in other people. And I don't really know why exactly that is. I presume that it being rare in other people is a good thing, because I don't know how beneficial it might be to question everything for the average person. But yeah, I disagree, but the reason why I disagree, I can't tell you. It's just the feeling I have. It's just
I don't
something.
I don't
Yeah.
think you disagree. I don't even think that you really disagree.
Okay,
Like
you
I
disagree
think
with my disagreements.
yeah, I disagree with your disagree because I think like when we look at your life, like the way you are conducting your life, you live based upon that premise in all the other areas which are not you, basically. Like on all, like you value the life of the dog, you think that the life of the other people around you is precious, and like this idea of life being precious in and of itself, you live by that every day. Like that's most people live by that every day, as long as there is no really big thing. But I think it's just missing for yourself. It's just
Yeah,
like it's
mm.
something is, I think, in the way. I don't have a conclusion for that. I don't know why this is the case. It's just an observation that I feel like for themselves they don't have this. Yeah, that there is not this value for their own life in the sense of experiences.
Yeah, I think. Have you heard of Sollipsism before?
Yes, but please remind me. What can you give me the definition again?
So Sollipsism is pretty much the idea that only you exist. Everything in the
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
world is pretty much like a figment of your imagination. Effectively, you can
Cartesian
be.
doubt, in the sense of Cartesian
Yeah,
doubt.
yeah. In fact, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, yeah. And I was a solipsist. You could say I am a solipsist now, but I don't act like one, I guess you might say. But then there's this solipsistic argument that pretty much says that if everything is in my head, then why would I want to destroy any of it, right? If everything is effectively me, then why would I want to damage anything if it is me? Why would I want to damage myself? But then you could counter that point with what you said before. It seems that there is almost a void which people might have where they value the experiences of the other but not of the self, not of themselves. And I don't know what to really say about that critique because it is a fair critique. Because, hmm, yeah, I would agree with what you're saying, but I don't know necessarily if someone acting that way um about the world, acting that way towards the world, necessarily follows, because I could say I'm just acting in an inconsistent way. Like I could say through my socialization I am acting this way, even though how I'm acting is logically does not follow. Like people do this a lot with morality. People rarely explain their morality. Even an explanation into morality would make people look at you with like imagine if I was to tell you, hey, imagine if I was to say to you, hey, I'm not a cannibal because I think that humans would taste weird. You're gonna look at me like, whoa, hold on. What do you mean? And that's not. You shouldn't have a reason for not being one. You just shouldn't be one out of principle. And that is
Or out of
because
disgust.
yeah, I'll discuss. Yeah, sure, whatever. Yeah,
I mean,
but I would
I don't
say
really
that.
care about you. I would trust more in your disgust than in your principles. Let's say it like this, right?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it
Yeah.
could be. Yeah, it could be discussed. You could say that principles and discuss are sort of interwoven together with each other. For example, it used to be very common for men, women, children. They used to have little stalls for children and women to sit on so they could see what was happening when it came to drawing and quartering events, right? Where people were like beheaded, and then their limbs were drawn by horses, and then they would like get skinned and beheaded, whatever would happen. And then little kids would watch that. They would be having a great time of it, you know? I would say that disgust and socialization are somewhat in the play with what, but that doesn't really matter too much for the purposes of what I'm talking about. But I think that what you're saying, I lost my train of thought here a bit now.
I mean, my
Yeah,
current thesis, and please everybody that is listening to this and you as well, take this with a pinch of how do you say, pinch of salt, grain of salt,
yeah, grain of salt. Yeah,
grain
grain
of
of salt.
salt.
Yeah,
I think it's depression, to be honest. Like, it really fits into everything I know about. I think I know about depression, and it really makes sense to. Yeah, it really sounds like a rationalization of a depressed mind. But that's just my current feeling about it. It might change. So yeah.
yeah. I don't know if it's depression. I did have somebody, I did have someone in my comment section. I said something about the desire to have friends or whatever, and then they were saying, "Oh, it sounds like you're depressed." And then I was like, I'm not depressed. I think I'm okay. I'm fine." And then he was like, "No, man, you're depressed. Trust me." I was like, "How is this guy know I'm depressed before I know I'm depressed? How is this happening?" And I found that to be sort of funny. But yeah, the idea this stems from depression. There's a quote that goes along the lines of no philosopher ever has a good life. To become a philosopher, you have to have some negative event. To question the world must give
Pythagoras
you a
had
reason
a
to question it.
awesome life. Pythagoras had a really, really good life.
Um, Pythagoras.
Yeah.
Did he? Wasn't
I
he in like
think,
a
yeah,
cult or
he
something?
wasn't he like a huge businessman, and he had like he bought like olive fields, and predicted predicted some weather stuff, and became like super rich, and made like the first he basically did like the first short selling in the history of mankind, or something like that. I'm not sure, maybe I'm mistaken, but
Oh, I did. That was Parmenides who did that. No, not Parmenides. So
really,
it was Thales, or is that where he was from? These people, their names were
that
confusing
could be.
because they don't
Yeah,
have
yeah,
last
yeah,
names.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, it might have been the
It
Thales
might be
of
that I'm
Miletus.
mistaking.
I think that's who it was.
Yeah,
Yeah,
could be.
because they, yeah. I think Pythagoras used to worship beans. If I remember
Really.
correctly. Anyway,
But wait, you say that
yeah.
you need some amount of pain to that again feels
I
like rationalizing, like, yeah, okay, so all right, yeah, let's hear it. So you say you need some pain for.
Yeah, I think, well, it's just something which I found to be common in philosophy. Philosophers normally are either social outcasts or have or have like fairly bad lives. Though that could just be a product of them being like fairly smart and fairly smart people. I think the smarter you are above like 110 IQ or 120 IQ, you just get more and more depressed. I'm pretty sure that was something which I found out. But I feel like for a lot of these philosophers, they often have some big negative event in their lives, or their lives generally have a lot of pervasive negative event. Like Schopenhauer, for example, he was a big pessimist
He was a
philosopher.
blackpiller,
He,
right?
yeah, he was
Yeah,
one of the first, one of
he
the
was
OG
blackpill
black
before it
pillars.
was
Yeah.
cool. Yeah.
Exactly. What a guy. He blackpilled Nietzsche. What a guy. He was blackpilling everyone. But yeah, his life was, you could say, pretty bad. He was poor for most of his life. Sorry, he wasn't poor for most of his life, but he was unsuccessful for most of his life. He never found success in the academic field until he was really, really old. Then he got famous, and then he was like, all of these people come wanting to talk to me, but I'm old now, and I don't want to talk to anyone because I'm old and grumpy and whatever. Um,
Yeah, he had like
yeah,
3 years
like
of success, I think. 3 years in
yeah, yeah,
total. Yeah.
yeah,
And then
something
he
like
died.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then Nietzsche had like chronic illnesses, and then he went insane after he wrote all of his books. Kierkegaard had like a fairly bad life, and his works are somewhat of a reflection of that. You have Sartre, who felt very envious of his peers because of how he looked, which could also be sort of a black pill adjacent thing. So all of these people sort of have negative lives, and I think what I said before, I still stand by that. I think that you having some amount of I think that life has to present to you a problem in order for you to question it. I think that being not introspective, I think that intellectualizing issues comes from the world not presenting itself to you how you would expect it to be presented. I don't know necessarily if that is
From a lack
depression.
of control.
Sure, a lack of control, I guess you might say. But all a lot of pain comes from a lack of control, right?
Sure.
But yeah, I would say that that's I don't know if it's depression. I don't think depression is the right word for it. But I see what you mean. The sort of life denial which is common in depression is also common with blackpillers. But yeah, I don't know.
I mean,
Maybe if you
yeah.
elaborate a bit on the life denial point, then I can talk more about it. Like what else have you seen other than me in terms of life denying characteristics in black pillars, other than antinatalism, which we already spoke about?
Yeah, I mean, we can talk about the obvious one that just like pathologically, like factually, a lot of blackpillers and incels are depressed. Like that's just
Yeah,
a
true.
certain amount of percentile. That's just a certain percentage that is factually depressed. Then you have the antinatalists, which we already talked about it. But then you have like the whole way of seeing life is without the value for experiences. Like without that, that's like my main point. And experience is tied directly to life. Pain, joy, like this is all two sides. This is two sides of the same coin, and they can't exist without each other, and they're both tied to life. And this idea of, okay, I'm just gonna live a life that is trying to avoid pain as much as possible sounds like to me like a very anti-life stance, you know? And
Yeah, I do.
just
I think.
I mean, we all could like live more more safe lives, right? Like we could all try to live a life that is optimizing for minimal pain. But that's just not life. I don't like that's the minimal pain would be, as I've said, the basically putting yourself in a simulation and making everything great and switching off the memory of you putting yourself in there, right? Which is to me a form of suicide, because you're killing the past you that put themselves into this machine, right? That's like you saying goodbye forever to that being, and you're living a new life. And that's why I'm also saying it's depressive. Like at the end of your video, I was like, it was great that you're a mind that is like, so you have you're a smart guy, like you directly recognized that giving yourself an AI girlfriend is basically very similar to putting yourself in a simulation completely. You directly made that leap, because when I heard you talking about the AI girlfriend, I was having that thought as well. And then you made that point for yourself. That was pretty great and introspective moment, I think, that you made that.
Yeah.
I want to, if you have something to add, please feel free.
Yeah, I
But I
just, I
want to
just have
talk.
one last. Yeah,
Sure.
I just have one tiny last thing to add
Sure.
on to that.
Mm-hmm.
I think that living in a dream world where you forget that you're actually in the dream world, I think that is one of my aims. That is like a reality which I would like for myself. Yeah, which okay, it's funny that you can tell. I don't know, I didn't know it was so obvious, but that's a good thing, I suppose. That is an aim which I have for myself, and I think it should be available to everybody who wants to live like that. What you've said, I can understand it, but like I said before, I disagree with it simply because I don't value experiences just because they are experiences. I don't value things just because they are. I have to value things dependent on the pain and the pleasure which they give me. That's just how I value things. I don't know why that might be, and I don't even know how I would find out why that is the case. You have some theories. I don't know, but that's pretty much all I'd say.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
Yeah.
There's two more things I want to talk to you about.
Okay.
One is the whole idea of I watched another video of yours which was about kidology and femcels. And I would like to make the case for femcels existing just as much as incels existing. Yeah,
Okay.
I'm sure like the all of the people that are watching my stuff are gonna love it.
I mean that's I made that video, and then one of my friends came to me, one of my female friends. She was like, "Oh, you really missed the mark on this one," talking to me about how I was wrong about X, Y, and Z, so on and so forth. So yeah, I'm good to talk about that. Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so the idea basically, like, maybe we should start like by saying, okay, what is an incel? To me, an incel is a person that is not capable of getting a romantic partner. That's for me just plain and simple. It's the condition of not being able to do the act of getting a romantic partner.
Yeah, sure. I pretty much agree with that. Incel is actually surprisingly hard to define, because some people put time periods on it, and some people say, "Oh, have you tried?" Like there's like how hard have you tried? How many cold approaches, warm approaches have you done? And then it kind of gets sort of muddy. So I'll disagree with your definition here. I think that's for the best.
We can now further elaborate this definition. So we can say, okay, when can we say that you're not able to do something, right? So maybe we would have to see you try first. Like maybe we would not believe your incapability. It would not make sense for us to call you unable to do something if you're simply not trying at all. Like we don't even know if you're not capable of doing something, right?
Exactly.
So that's a really important point as well. And then the other important part in the definition is what do we define as finding a romantic partner? Like what would be the state of finding a romantic partner? Have you found a romantic partner if you hate that romantic part? If you are disgusted by that romantic partner? If you don't have like enjoy having sex with them, or like if you're not attracted to them at all, is that having found a romantic partner? Feels like it's not, right? It's kind of yeah. So, and if we agree, I feel like we're mostly agreeing on all of these like important points to question when we elaborate if somebody is an incel. I would say that femcels really qualify for being incels, especially like a person like Kidology is, in my opinion, and I agree with your assessment that she is she has problems with her sexuality in a sense of like being scared and traumatized and all of these things. And I feel like this is like a big amount of incels, on the male incels, have the exact same problem. Yeah. So
I might, yeah.
I would say like Kidology, even if she has a app full of thousands of males that want to sleep with her, an incel also has thousands of males who want to sleep with them, right? So
wait.
Just, yeah.
Okay, I see what you
They could
mean.
just go on a homosexual dating app, and there would be this, and also that's where I was a little bit disagreeing with your definition of inceldom, where you said it's about desirability, it's about wanting to be, sorry, not your definition of inceldom, but about the real issue with inceldom. You said people want to be desired. It's not that people just want to be desired; they want to be desired by people that they desire, right? So they're not happy. You would not be happy as an incel. Like, you can give me any incel on YouTube, I can put his picture in a gay dating app, and he will be desired a lot, right? But he would not be happy about it, obviously.
Yeah.
So
in that,
yeah,
carry on.
No, please. I mean, that's what I mean. Like you that doesn't disqualify Kidology from being an incel just because she's desired, but if she's not interested in the people that desire her. We could also make an incel strip in a retirement, in a female retirement home, and the old ladies would find him really, really sexy and attractive, but that would not give him the satisfaction that he would get from girls his age finding him desirable, right?
Mm. So let me give you this example. If somebody was to be depressed and have anhedonia, which is pretty much a state where you feel no desire for anything and you feel no pleasure from anything, pretty much, would that person be an incel? Because they have no desire for relationships, and the person isn't in a relationship currently. They have no desire for anything. Would having anhedonia make that person an incel?
No, by definition, if they would not want to, like, they would be a Volcel, right?
Yeah. So in that
I mean,
situation,
I don't know what anhedonia means. Like, sorry,
yeah. So it just means a lack of desire, I guess you might say.
for what?
So if that for anything,
For anything,
it's
okay.
just yeah, for anything. It's just like it can be a symptom of depression. So in that, Kadology is a really weird case study now because more information has come out about her. Apparently, she's a lesbian. So
Yeah, she has.
yeah,
She was also on medication, right? That
yeah,
was
she was not. Yeah, there was there
at
was
the
a lot of
time.
stuff which was
Yeah.
there was a lot of stuff which makes her case complicated. I feel that the brand the label of incel can be expanded fairly thoroughly. Like you can call a lot of different people incels depending on how you define the definition, right? Because if you like how you've described it there, you could say a lot of different people could be incels. You could say that a very attractive man with extremely high standards would be an incel, for example. But then we come to the point of the incel experience. When I think a lot of incels talk about inceldom, I think they are referring to something which is very hard to define, but is very easy to understand when felt. Like I used to say to people on Discord, you will know inceldom is known when it is felt, right? It is known through feeling, and though many different people could be defined technically as incels, the incel experience is somewhat rare, right? Um,
Can you
I don't know.
maybe
The Yeah.
give some?
Yeah. So the point I was trying to make with the codology video is the desire for a relationship. That's what I think codology has, which is one step removed from what I defined as inceldom in the video. For example, let's say we have a homosexual man, and then this homosexual man doesn't want to be homosexual. It would be incorrect for you to say that this homosexual man wants to be with a woman. That's not true. This homosexual man wants to not be homosexual, and then therefore he wants a desire to be with a woman. Because if you were to ask him, if you were to say, if you were to have that guy, and then you were to ask him, "Hey, do you want to be in a relationship with a woman?" He would say no because he's a homosexual, right?
It's
However,
really, yeah.
that does not mean he doesn't have the desire to be non-homosexual. There is a gap in the desire. There's an extra link, an extra chain which exists here for the situation of codology, where I don't remember what I said exactly. This video is an old one, but I believe what I said was Kadology has the desire to have the desire for a relationship because she is presented with this plethora of different options, and then she does not want any of the options. I believe there was a section with Destiny, and then Destiny said, out of I don't know however many men and women she could pick, would any of them be examples of good relationships? And then she said, no, none of them would be. And then I think, sure, I suppose depending on how you describe, I would say you would be a lot more of a standard cell than an incel. But then I guess you could say that a straight incel who doesn't want any homosexual men would also be a sort of standard cell, I
No,
suppose.
no,
That
no,
like,
no. I mean, like we don't even have to go that far. I mean, we can just say, uh, 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 I mean, if you go really, really theoretical mind
yeah,
about it, then
go
yeah,
deep with
maybe
it,
we
yeah.
could. But if you, we don't even have to do that. We don't even have to go
Okay.
that far. I'm just like when you take the average incel, and you will find someone that will be physically interested in them, but probably this someone is maybe going to be, I don't know, like just for a man, like as you've said, if a man puts himself on the street and says, do you want to sleep with me? You have put this video in the, I think in the Kidology video, you put this video where it was really funny. If you would do the same thing with a guy, and then if you would do the same thing with an incel, it would like this, you would have to probably wait for a week until somebody says yes, right? If you do that full time the whole day.
Yeah, but somebody would say yes.
But somebody would say yes at some point, and also some woman would say yes. But the probability is really, 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 really high that the incel is that person is not going to want to sleep with that woman, right? So that will make him, to a certain extent, that will make him a standard cell as well.
Yeah, I would say
just a gradual difference, not a categorical difference.
Yeah, I guess that would be the case. In the same way that me rubbing my hands together and the sun, and me like extracting energy from the sun, both the forms of creating energy. Sure, I mean I could rub my hands together and that does create friction, create energy, and I could extract energy straight from the sun and that would also create energy. Or my rubbing my hands together and a nuclear power plant. They're both technically creating energy, but to call these, but to draw parallels between the extreme.
But that's not the crux of the issue. The crux of the issue is that for both it's the same outcome, because Kidology might has to wait 1 minute to find somebody that wants to sleep with her, and he has to wait 1 week to find someone that wants to sleep with them. But they both have something in common. They both don't want to sleep with the person that offers them. So the result is the same. So even if she has like there is no sexual gratification there for her as well.
Yeah, I guess if there's no one out there, then that would link back to what I said before, that having the desire for the desire, but not having the desire itself. Like Kidology, like I said before, has the desire to have a relationship, but she lacks the desire for the relationship, because all of these people are not able to fulfill whatever needs she might have. And in that case, again, relating this back to the pure incel experience, in that case, I would say that Kidology's situation and the situation of an average incel are completely dissimilar. And then relating this back to femcels more generally, I've personally never. It's hard to even say, because I know incels who've never had any woman show them any interest ever in their lives. But I've never met a femcel where no man has ever showed them interest. You could say that that's a disanalogy because they don't find the man to be attractive or whatever it might be. But I feel
it's not even that
like
I
the
don't.
Experiences. Go on.
It's not even that I don't think that they find the man attractive or not. It's the thing that we have a simple asymmetry in sexuality between men and women. Men, if you have a beautiful woman, you are going to most probably come, right? That's just you're going to orgasm. It's really probable that you're going to orgasm. And if you are not able to orgasm, that also changes your, like if you have problems with that, that will also change your behavior and you will become selective more in a sense of a woman. I think that's just what I saw. And it's really normal for a woman, for her having like 100 chats in her DMs, that doesn't mean anything for her orgasm, like in this direct sense, as it does for a man. If I have like 100 really beautiful women in my phone, in my DMs, that means 100 orgasms, right? That's like but if you don't have that, like if I have, for example, if I would have other problems with my sexuality, for example, if I'm really, really nervous before sex and I have really big anxiety and I know that I will not get an erection, then these 100 really hot women, I might even want a less hot woman. I might even want a more ugly woman but less experienced woman, so that my anxiety is just reduced. So it will completely change the whole way these DMs, the whole meaning and the whole value of these DMs, right? Because it will not mean sex, it will not mean orgasm, it will not mean give me the satisfaction that I'm looking for.
Yeah, I think there's an interesting there's an idea which I brought up in a recent video, the idea of men and women men and women not being able to be compared between one another because their situations are just so different. Let's say you have somebody in a sauna who really wants to be in a cold shower, and then you have somebody in a cold shower who really wants to be in the sauna. Who's having the better experience here? It's impossible to say, right? Or who's having the worst experience? It's impossible to say. Both people are in situations which they don't want to be in. However, the other one person, and I've seen this happen if I was to draw an allegory to relationships. One person might say, "Man, I wish I was that person in the cold shower right now. I hate being in the sauna." Then the person in the sauna might say, "Man, I wish." Sorry, the person in the cold shower might say, "Man, I wish I was in the sauna right now. I hate being in the cold shower." These two people desire each other's experiences, but their desires are disanalogous. They're completely at odds with one another, and this happens a lot in discussions about relationships between men and women. For example, I was watching this video, and this woman said, all these men keep on talking about wanting to be the best in the sexual marketplace. I wish I wasn't. And then she said, I wish I wasn't even in the sexual marketplace. And then that's such a that's such a unrelatable opinion to the majority of men that it's hard to even compare her experience to the experience of a man, because their desires are completely at odds with one another. And I would say that when it comes to the femcel versus incel experience, we have something somewhat similar, where you could say that their pure ends are the same, in the same way as the cold shower and sauna person. Their pure ends are the same, where they both want comfort, they both want to be happy effectively. You could say that the situations of the incel and the femcel are the same, whereas they both want satisfaction in that way which you brought up, right? But their methods by which they obtain this satisfaction are completely different, and
Wait,
therefore
say
their
again
experiences
that
are completely different.
last sentence. Can you repeat that? I didn't get
I
that.
don't know if I remember. No,
You said the
what I said was,
outcomes.
yeah.
You agree that
Mm,
it's to a certain extent the outcomes are the same, right? So
mm.
you would agree that a femcel has, in the same way, not the possibility to find someone that will satisfy her sexual and also emotional needs. Like that's my definition. My definition is you are an incel, male or female, if your desires for sexual and or romantic needs are not fulfilled. You're not able to
Yeah,
fulfill them. You're not able to find someone that fulfills both of these things. And so you agree with me there that Kidology checks both of these boxes if she's in that state, right? So maybe let's not talk about Kidology, but you would agree that there is women in our current society, and not even like there is women. It's not like a huge edge case to think about women that have this problem, that all the men that they see on a day-to-day basis could not fulfill both of these things.
again, I would more focus on the experience. Like if you're walking past like loads and loads of men who can't fulfill whatever experiences that you need, that's so different to the average experience of an incel. I would say I don't even like using the same cell term. Like
Mm-hmm.
I guess if we were to describe femcel in that way, and then make a hard line between experiences of femcels and incels, and say that they are not similar near enough whatsoever. However, their lack of end goal is effectively the same, regardless of experience. Then I would agree, I suppose. But I
Okay,
feel like the experience is really, really, really what separates these two. And
I
I
would
feel like the
say
experience of a femcel and incel is just so disparate
I
that they just
agree with you 100%. Like
okay.
on this part, like that the experience is different. I agree with you 100% because society, because we're still living in a society, like in a pretty gender role based, pretty traditional society. It might not seem like that to us, but we do. Like, and society still punishes men for being incels and rewards women for being incels, for being
Mm.
celibate. Okay, so it's
Yeah,
still
yeah,
like no one is gonna think of a woman being a loser when she goes home from a club without having a romantic partner. But there is this idea of a guy that goes out. He goes out to get with a girl, right? And then when he goes home alone, he kind of there is this idea of people make fun of him if he tried to get a girl and he wasn't able to do so and stuff like that, you know? So society is punishing, is like looking down on men who can't get laid, and is rewarding is rewarding women that don't get laid, basically.
Yeah.
So the experience, of course, is completely different. But I don't think we should.
Is the same.
Yeah, I don't think we should make the definition depend on the experience itself. I think the definition should be the definition, and because what do we do if society changes? That wouldn't make it's not a good way of defining something by the way other people interact with it, right?
No, I think you've made I think what you've said is interesting. Let me see if I can think of anything else which would be similar to that. It would be like,
yeah, I'm trying to find an analogy as well. I know what you're looking for.
I'm not too sure what else it could be. I feel like this example might be somewhat unique, where the experiences are completely different, but the end goals or the unachieved goal is effectively the same.
I mean, if we call something, if, for example, yeah, it's a good example. For example, society has a really different way of treating I think we say homosexuals if they're gay or lesbian, for example. There is
true, yeah, okay.
Yeah, so there is a big difference how men, for example, are really cool with lesbians. But once it comes to gays, there's like a form of disgust or
exactly,
a really applaudment of lesbians, and that doesn't change the fact that they're both homosexual, right? So we would not say, but there is a different homosexual experience. I think it's enough to say femcel, incel. That sounds like that's even too much of a distinction in my opinion, for my taste, but. Because I agree that the experience is quite different, but the general male experience and female experience is very different. So it's not that surprising that also in that regard the experience is really different, right?
Yeah, I would agree. There's this idea in linguistics. It's called locution, so locutionary acts. And so you have, I'll just talk about two because we don't go into detail. There's one which is called locution and there's one which is called illocution. So a locution would be me just saying something, the cat is over there. And then the illocution is the understanding from what I've said. So let's say you're listening to me and then you understand me saying pretty much a one-to-one, the cat is over there, right? That's fine. But I feel like if I was to speak about femcels, I can control my locution, I can control what I say, but there can be loads of different illocutions, right? Like somebody might think that a femcel is a female who has the exact same experiences as an incel, which isn't true. Somebody might think that, like we've been speaking about before, the definition which we agreed on, where a femcel has different experiences, but experiences the same lack of the same non-achievement of the goal as an incel would achieve. And I think that the fact that the locution is so loosely tied to the illocution is a bit of a problem here. But I agree. Again, it's just really it's not necessarily semantics, because all that we're talking about here is semantics. We're arguing definitions.
But then couldn't we? I mean, that just isn't for me. I get what you're saying, but that's not an argument for me to change the definition or to because look at the way inceldom is perceived now. Like if you would ask a random person on the street what they think about incels, like there's like the current way it's not at all what it actually is, right? So it's like off by a lot. Like they would say, yeah, incel, isn't that people that hate women, right? Like
Yeah, exactly.
So
Yeah,
so
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah. I mean, that's another perfect example of what I was saying. The locution doesn't at all tie with the illocution. Like some people don't even know that incel had anything to do with celibacy. Like I was talking
yeah,
to this person, and then they were just like, "Oh, incels, so isn't that just a synonym for like misogynist?" And I
yeah,
was like,
yeah.
"So you don't know about any?" So, which is yeah. So the word is I made a video a while back, talking about the death of the word incel and how it's been completely misused and abused. People are using it to describe people like Andrew Tate, whose like whole job is getting women effectively,
Yeah.
which is like like you could think of anybody who is the opposite of an incel. Andrew Tate would be like the perfect example, and he's getting called an incel. So the word is completely dead. The locution and the illocution are completely divorced from one another. So I would agree. I would agree with you again there. It but I feel like for us who know what incel mean, I feel like to call a female incel also an incel, um, I'm not necessarily arguing against you or anything that you're saying here. I'm more making the point that there might be a misunderstanding with the okay, let me say it like this. I think that the consequence of not calling femcels, not calling female incels, just calling them women, not giving them any title, will convey the experience of the average femcel better than me calling them a femcel. Where me saying femcells doesn't exist, although being technically not true, that femcells actually do exist, although that's technically true, me saying that femcells don't exist actually conveys a more accurate message of what I'm trying to say, if that makes sense. Because all everything which you can draw
Wait,
from my
saying
statement
that
that
incels don't exist
saying that yeah, so
conveys a
yeah,
better message.
so I'll just say what I said again.
Yeah.
So me saying that femcells don't exist conveys what I'm trying to say better than me saying that femcells do exist.
What are you
Because
trying to say?
I'm
Depends on
trying to
what you're
say
trying
that
to say in the back,
yeah, I'll
like
just say so what yeah, so what
beyond
I'm
that.
trying to say so what I'm trying to say is the experiences of femcells and incels are really nothing alike.
Sure,
That would be mainly what I'm trying to say.
sure, but
Like
how
I
can
could
you?
just
Yeah,
hmm?
wouldn't it even make your statement even stronger because you're separating the condition from the experience from the way society is reacting to a certain condition, and you would even be more able to show society how differently they treat the same problem with men versus women. Like, wouldn't you be able to show society basically how sexist they are to the disadvantage of men, which is, I think, something that you agree on, right?
Yeah, but I feel that when it comes to the femcel experience versus the incel experience, maybe if femcel was to become more popular a term, then I would have some sort of argument, like I would like go into detail about it. But even that video there, like I don't think we even disagree on anything here really. I think that the main thing, like for example in the codology video, I was more making the point that her experience wasn't anything like the incel experience because of all of the reasons which I gave. But more generally, if you were to say that femcells exist, then I would agree with you, but I would need more conversation. Right? I guess that would be my conclusion. I wouldn't just be able to agree. I would need you to, and I would need myself to flesh out our ideas of what a femcel is and talk about how the experiences aren't the same whatsoever. But in order to avoid all of that conversation, I think me just saying femcells don't exist really hammers home exactly what I'm trying to say. Because in both examples, I am pretty much getting across the same message. However, in the example of me talking about the difference between femcel and incel experience, I am having to um, say a lot more to convey the same amount of information, if that makes sense. Because if I go up to a femcel and I say that femcells don't exist, most of the time they're going to understand what I mean. But if I was to say that femcells do exist, and then I was to talk to them about all of the different experiences, then I'm going to have the same effect of me saying that femcels don't exist, but it's just going to take a longer time for me to get through all of the different points, right? If that makes any sense.
I mean, the same is the same thing, just like people misusing the word incel. I mean, you're basically trying to explain to me how it is better to use a worse definition, objectively a worse definition, because you'd have to explain less. But why like at the same time you would be okay with correcting the definition when somebody tells you it's a incel, isn't that a misogynist, right? You would correct them because you would say that's just not correct, right? Because you agree with me that the outcome, like that it is a condition, like it is a descriptive state in which people can be, right? And that is the same that people, both male and female, can be in that state. Like this state is not at all bound to gender or sex. So you agree with me on the definition, but basically you're trying to tell me that it's more practical to use a different definition because you have to explain less to people, and there I'm like, you wouldn't do that with other things. Like there is no other situation where you would tell me that this is in any way, shape, or form logical or even the correct thing to do, right?
I might do that with the word incel, but I would just use a different term. I would literally just say involuntarily celibate, and then people would be like, oh, okay, so not so, and then people would get like a better idea. So me just divorcing the word involuntarily incel into involuntarily celibate.
I mean, then I would just go with you. Then I would just come with you and also use involuntarily celibate, and then we would both be talking about involuntarily celibate, and then I would put kidology in there as well, and then you would say, yeah, but no, now I have to run away from that one as well, right?
No, it will be more like me saying, so like I said before, there are there are three different parts, we'll just focus on the two. There are two different parts of speech. The whole point of speech is in order to convey a message. If what you're saying is technically true, but the message which you convey isn't what you intended to convey, then you're not good at speaking. The whole point why we speak is to convey a message. If I'm talking to somebody, the main reason why I'm talking to them is to convey the message. If what I am conveying is not what I am intending to convey, then I have not enacted good speech, I guess you might say.
Then why do you keep using the word incel?
I don't use it anymore, actually. I use
really?
Well, I try not to use it as much. I try to use TFL. I made a post about it, actually. I made a few posts about why incel is dead.
TFL, like literally no one outside of Blackpill forums knows what TFL is.
True.
Like I just found out about TFL like 2 weeks ago. So this means either you intend your videos are only intended to be seen by people that are already in incel forums, which I don't believe is the case. I think you make the way you are talking about these things is especially designed for also people like outsiders and people that are not into it. So I don't think that's true, man. I feel like that's not really. I don't believe you.
Even when it comes to titles, there's a lot of other things. Like if I was titling a video, I want my video to like come up in search results. I want my video to like be connected to the topics which I'm talking about, stuff like that. But when it comes to my titles in my videos and me talking in my videos, when I bring up the ideas of incels, especially if I'm talking on my second channel, then I'm mainly focusing it towards like an incel audience, which already know what I'm talking about. But if I am targeting my ideas towards a more broader audience, I should really not use the term incel. And I would say that's almost like an oversight on my part. Even though I don't use the term incel very much anymore, I would still say that I should use it. Well, I would agree with what I said previously. The term incel is effectively dead because the locution doesn't align with the illocution whatsoever anymore. So I would say using a different word. I actually tried for a long time to introduce a new word into the vocabulary called praetor, which is pretty much just another word for incel. But that didn't really get that. That's fine. It doesn't exist anymore. It was called
Can
praetor.
You say it again?
I tried praetor, PRETYA.
What?
Yeah. So
that would be incel how we understand it right now.
Yeah, exactly. That would be how we understand it. So what I was trying to do there was I was trying to reattach the locution with the illocution, right? I was trying to stop these two from getting divorced. The two concepts from getting divorced from between one another. But when it comes, but again, I would say that like I said previously, the main aim of speech is to convey a message. The message which I am trying to convey can be conveyed better through speech which isn't technically true than it can be conveyed through speech which is technically true. Like
It's
if
not
I
about
was
actually, to be
Mhm.
honest, language is about usefulness.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's about usefulness and conveying an idea, conveying a message.
And
Yeah.
also in making differences, right? In being able to tell two things apart.
Yeah, so I mean there are a lot of technic. Yeah, I mean that's all. Yeah, it's about making distinctions as well. Yeah.
Yeah, we have to think about if it makes sense to include the social experience of being an incel, the way people react to something, into the definition of inceldom. So me and you, we are in agreement about inceldom being a condition, something from which people suffer, right?
Mm.
Some incapability, something, a lack of capability. That's what we both agree on. And now you are basically arguing in favor of adding the social experience of it into the definition,
Mm.
and I'm arguing against it.
Yeah.
So
I mean, yeah, pretty much.
you would have to make a good case why we should include the social and so incel means being involuntarily celibate and not being able to get a romantic partner, and also society really shitting on you for it.
Well, I wouldn't even say it's a societal aspect necessarily. It's more about the condition. I guess you could call it societal, but it's more about the condition which you're in, like the experience of being like constantly rejected, stuff like that. That experience is like is you could say it's societal as well. But yeah, I would say j-
You could make a case
how
for it.
yeah,
I
yeah
don't say it's
how
impossible,
yeah
but
yeah how we're arguing here. Neither one of us can really be correct. We're just arguing for different definitions.
for which
I
one
would
is more
say that my
useful?
definition. I would say that my definition is more useful, generally speaking. But of course, I would. This is my definition.
But
That's
you
that's
would have to make a
that's why I
case
would
for
say
it,
yeah,
yeah. But you can make a
yeah,
case.
yeah.
You could make a case for it, and I can make a case for it as well. Like I
Sure,
can tell
my
you why
case.
my definition is better, I think.
Sure, my case for usefulness. My case for the usefulness of using this term incel rather than
No, of including the social
yeah.
reaction to the state, to the incapable, to the lack of capability.
Yeah, it's because it pretty much gives the word itself more substance, more weight, and it's more accurate to how it's being used commonly within incel circles, right? So when people in incel circles talk about inceldom, they are referring to the experience of being an incel. This is why there's such a distinction between fake cells and standard cells and incels, right?
Yeah,
It's because the experience is really, really important to being an incel, even though technically speaking, a fake cell could very well just be another incel, right?
but
However,
you
their
would have to,
experiences.
if you take
Go.
away if you now introduce a new thing into the definition which was not there before, which we agree
Mm,
upon, you also now have to find a new word, a second word, for all the people that do not fit that definition but fit the first part of the definition, right? Because you agree that there is a lot of people, also male, that don't get the societal backlash but still
mm.
suffer in the same way and still have the same problems.
Yeah, I would just call those people fake cells.
Why?
I think the fake cell. I think the fake cell is well. It depends. How would you define fake cell? It depends how we define it.
I mean, fake cell to me is someone that either uh, I mean, it's a whole topic in and of itself, but I can just come up with an example of a person that doesn't get any societal backlash, that just like that gets rewarded even from society for being celibate,
Mm.
just like women do, right? And who is still really sad about not having a romantic partner and still is incapable of getting a romantic partner, right?
I would say I would agree generally, but
But
normally when I hear
what do we do
incels
with
talk about,
those? That's not an incel then?
I would just call them a fake cell.
Why? He has the
I think the
same.
fake,
He's not faking
but I feel
anything.
but the label accurately describes what is trying to be conveyed. For example, when I normally hear people talk about fake cells, generally speaking, are men who are attractive, but
He's not
adopt the
attractive.
incel label.
He's not attractive.
Okay,
He's
okay.
really, he's unattractive. He's very unattractive. He tries, he gets rejected, yeah? But society is praising him for it.
Oh wait, we just have different definitions of fake cell then.
Yeah, I'm not
Whenever,
even talking
yeah.
about fake cells.
No. The definition which you just gave me isn't how I see people describing fake cells. Generally, when people who I speak to describe fake cells, they're talking about an attractive man, LARPing, live action role
I
playing
agree.
as
Yeah.
as an
Yeah.
incel.
That's not,
Yeah.
I'm not
So
talking about fake cells. I'm talking about, here we can already see that my definition is correct because you're using it correctly. For the example I'm trying to make for an incel who doesn't get societal backlash, who gets the same societal response as a woman, you calling that already an incel. And we're trying to find a word that is not incel for it because your definition has included the societal backlash into it. Do you see what I'm saying?
yeah, but they'll still be called a cell, right? So technically,
I don't know. You would have to find a new word for it.
well, yeah, you can include the cell suffix
Okay.
without the in it, without the
But
involuntary bit in it.
is he
But you can
voluntary? It's
again,
not.
again, like yeah, you could argue that he's not. But then if I'm talking to like a 6'5" alpha male, 10 out of 10
We're not talking about that.
facial guy, but that would be an example of a fake cell. That could be an example of a
But we're
fake
not talking
cell.
about that.
But
We're
what
talking
would be
about
your
a
example
short,
of a
ugly
fake cell
guy.
then? Then he would just be an incel.
But he doesn't get the societal backlash that women get as well, either.
So he's short and ugly, and he doesn't get rejected.
Wait, you have included societal reaction to the inceldom.
When you say societal reaction, what do
Yeah,
you mean?
we have said that the experience of a female that is involuntarily, we have agreed that the problems and the incapability is basically the same, male or female. But you have said that the experience of male and female is very different, right?
Yeah.
So, and then we have said, okay, what's different about these two situations? And factually, it is that society is shitting on men for being incels and is praising women for being incels, right? Is like rewarding women even being not having sex. Like women are societally rewarded for not having sex, and men are being shit on for not having sex. And men feel like losers for not having sex. Women feel more valuable for not having sex. Okay?
So the fake cell in
that's
this
why
example
that's why the societal experience, that's why the experience of the incel is so different. He feels like a loser, and society also tells him that he's a loser and that he's undesirable and all of these things, while it's not the same for the woman, right? So that's why if you don't want to call women incels, then you have to add the societal reaction to their celibacy into the definition if you want to exclude women from being incels.
Yeah, I guess I guess I misunderstood what you meant by societal reaction. When you spoke about societal reaction, I thought you were referring more to the rejection which the certain gender, whatever it might be, would feel, and what is surrounding that, because I feel like that is the main thing which separates the incel from the femcel, the rejection which is faced. But when it comes to the more general societal reaction, if society praises you for abstinence, then so society praises you for abstinence, but then but then in yourself you feel like a loser because of it. Would that be the situation with that fake cell? Would that be the example?
I don't see the I don't see
So
why
you
we're
have
talking
this.
about fake cells. Right now we're just talking about incels. Like we're
Well,
just talking about incels. And also, just one thing to add, we have both agreed that for being an incel, it must be the not being capable of both not getting a romantic partner, like somebody that is willing to emotionally commit to you, as well as somebody who's willing to sexually commit to you. right? So it must be both. So if it's just one or the other, we're both not happy, right? That's like that's not. We need both in order for it to not be an incel anymore. So just going to a prostitute is not going to save you, and having a platonic relationship is not going to save you either, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
and there I would say that women can get the same amount of rejection, maybe not on a sexual level, but definitely on the emotional level. Like friends of my ex-girlfriends, there was this one girl, she's getting she has lots of sexual partners, but she's getting rejected by literally every guy on an emotional level. Like she's like
Okay. I
crying
see now.
every 2 to 3 months. She's like crying about another guy who just used her for sex and then left her alone. So I would say that also on the rejection front, women are just as rejected, can be just as rejected as men. That's why I say that the only difference between men and women is the societal reaction to their inceldom is the only difference.
That's a tough one, because when we start going into relationships, it's it's I feel like we need another word. Like we need a difference between short-term and long-term relationships, right? Like short-term as in like one night stands or whatever it might be, and then long-term relationships in terms of like full-on relationships, because there are levels to it, right? So the ability to get a short-term relationship is better than no relationship, and then the ability to get a long-term relationship is for some people, you can argue between these two, but at least having the ability to get a long-term relationship is better than the ability to get a short-term relationship and the ability to not get any, right? So there are levels to that. But I've just looked up the definition of the term celibacy, and it means abstaining from marriage or sexual relationships.
Yeah, both emotional commitment
Now,
and sexual commitment. So
yeah,
exclusivity,
but
commitment, and like wanting to sleep with you, and then only wanting to sleep with you, like committing to exclusivity.
yeah, but then we would have an example where you have this woman who would have slept with like hundreds of thousands of men potentially.
Hundreds of
She would still be
thousands of
she
men.
it could be,
That's a
and
lot,
she would be
man.
considered, that's loads, but she would be considered a femcel under your definition if none of those men want to have a long-term relationship with her, if none of those men want to give her emotional intimacy. And I
Yeah, I
feel like
mean,
that,
we could say this.
but
Yeah,
doesn't that feel divorced from what we're trying to convey?
I don't think so, because
Okay.
I mean, we would agree that a guy uh, going to prostitutes 10 times a day is still an incel, right?
Yeah, but I feel like there's a difference in the desire with that example. I would understand, I could understand that, and I feel like the prostitution argument is a bit of a weird. This is not a weird one, but it's almost like a weird loophole you can get around. But I would say that having all of those people with the desire to be with you in the example of the woman is a lot different than having to pay for people to be with you. It's like, imagine you have loads of friends. Imagine you have one person with loads of friends, and then you have another person who has to pay people to be friendly to them. They have to pay people to be friends with them. In like these two examples are fairly divorced from one another, I would say. Like they don't seem to be similar at all, and I think it's weird. I could understand the incel example with an incel who's like slept with loads of prostitutes or whatever it might be. Then they would, then it feels weird calling them an incel. But I would say, for the example of the woman who's had thousands in that example of partners who all have the desire to be with her, uncoerced, I guess you would say. I feel like those two situations are so different from one another, because a lot of the incel problem, and this is going back again to the experience of inceldom, so I don't know if we want to get too much into that again, but a lot of the experience between these two are completely different. The woman would be walking down the street and have loads of men effectively throwing themselves at her, whereas the incel could be shunned and rejected by every woman that he meets and only be opened up to when he starts giving them money. I feel like these two are in such antithetical relationships with one another. Although technically, I suppose they could be defined the same way. Like you see how the experience is so sharply different that using the same word almost makes the word feel vapid and lose all of its meaning.
I think inceldom, like the problem with inceldom, is a lot about validation. And validation is like defined a lot. Society defines validation to a certain extent. So, and also like value comes also from kind of from also something being rare and not being there, right? So a woman doesn't get the same kind of validation you would get as a man from being like catcalled or something like that.
Yeah.
Like there is no validation coming from there because it's not something that is really valuable. It's something that exists in abundance, right? So again, the issue is about validation. So what doesn't exist in abundance is a guy that is willing to commit to that relationship, to commit emotionally, etc. That's not in abundance. A man that they want, of course. So
yeah,
the problem is the same. Like the problem is a lack of validation and a lack of. I mean, we could definitely then if we could say sexual incels or emotional incels, right? So being
yeah. But I
celibate,
feel,
yeah,
I feel like we do agree because this is the point I made before: the sauna versus the cold shower. Like the aim of both the person in the sauna and the person in the cold shower is to be comfortable, right? They both want to be comfortable. The person in the sauna would be comfortable in the cold shower, and the person in the cold shower would be comfortable in the sauna, right? Both these people desire comfort in the same way that both a femcel and an incel and a fake cell and whatever it might be all desire or yeah, they all desire validation, but using the same terms here feels like we are reducing the experience down too much, where the definition in and of itself loses some meaning. I feel like what you said at the end there, using different words in order to describe them, is good. I would even be on board with using the term femcel if it was commonly understood. If the illocution, if the societal consequences or the consequence of being rejected was put into it, I would be fine with that. But my problem is currently, at this current time, there is a divorcement between the locution and the illocution, the words which are being stated and the understanding from those stated words commonly are disparate from one another when I talk to femcels, right? And because of that, I choose to use different language in order to convey what I want to convey, even though my language might not be technically true. I feel like we agree on the main points. I feel like we don't really have too much of a disagreement, if I'm going to be completely honest with you, because I feel like our ideal world would be us saying whatever we had to say, us saying femcel, and then the person who's listening understanding, okay, he means that he's talking about femcel, which is different from incel in the way that they have different life experiences. Or if I was to use the term, incel referring to a woman, the person who was listening to me would understand, hey, he does mean incel, but the experiences of male incels and female incels are different because of XYZ reason. If that was to be the case, then we really wouldn't have any disagreement whatsoever. Our disagreement really isn't on terms. Our disagreement is on the understanding from the person listening to those terms. I am trying to maximize the understanding on the side of the person, and then it seems like what you're trying to maximize is just the truth, is the truth of the statement. Both of these are fair ways of going about things, in my opinion, but we're just going about them in different ways.
what's your definition? I think I already know the answer since I think you're a pretty consistent and logical guy. What's your definition of? Do you agree with the definition of racism that it's not possible to be racist against white people? Do you agree with that?
No,
Yeah.
I wouldn't say so.
Okay.
I would say that's
I
kind of
rest my
like you
I
could,
rest my
yeah.
case.
You could I don't even know that discourse, if I'm going to be honest. I haven't
Yeah.
looked into that too much, but I have heard it, like every now and again. Like the problem isn't that supposed to be like an argument of power or
Yeah,
something like that?
about like
Like because white
it's
people have
really
power over
similar
black
to
people.
what you're basically saying. It's like there is a systemic issue with racism against non-white people, right? And most people agree on that there is a systemic issue, like that there is a systemic part to it. But now the systemic part of it has been introduced into the non-systemic pure form of racism. Like the word racism has been mixed up with the systemic racism. So
I see.
that's a parallel I'm drawing. But we
But
don't
then you
have
have
to.
two different definitions. But then you have the systemic and the racism. Like if I was to just call somebody
Yeah,
like a racist term,
yeah,
then that would be a racist action. But that wouldn't be an institutionally racist system,
yeah.
right?
That's why
Like
it wouldn't exist. That's why the people would say that doesn't exist. That's why you say that femcels don't exist. That's
well,
right. Like that's the same thing. Like it's exactly the same thing. Like it would
the
be a
reason
contradiction because the
me saying
definition has been
femcel,
skewed that way that it would be a contradiction to say that it even exists because in
but
the society is part of the definition now. Sorry.
yeah, but how I'm speaking mainly depends on who I'm speaking to. Like, I guess that would be the main point I'm making. If I'm
Mm-hmm.
making a broad scale argument and I was to say femcells don't exist, everybody gets what I mean. Pretty much everybody gets what I mean. The incels get what
Kidology
I
doesn't.
mean.
I don't. I don't either.
Because the Codology situation is
It's
I
very
don't know
complicated. I agree.
how that's updated. But when
Yeah.
I say the term when I'm talking purely about femcells and incels, the incels understand what I mean because
Yeah.
what I'm saying is that the experiences are divorced from one another. Femcells understand what I mean because what I'm saying is the experiences are divorced from one another. I guess like the average person might not understand what I mean, but even then, like back then when I made the video, my channel was very focused on a Blackpill audience. It was all about Blackpill back then,
Mm-hmm.
like a year ago. So I'm only really making videos for my audience and then for the people referenced in the title of the video.
Mm-hmm.
But how I would speak would differ greatly depending on who I'm speaking to. Like if I was to speak to you, I'll just use the term femcel because we both know what I'm talking about, right? You know, I know that there's no difference between locution and illocution because we both understand what we're saying. There'll be no need for me to do this to use this roundabout method in order to
Mm-hmm.
say what I want to say. There'll be no need for that. And because you would understand it. But if I was talking to somebody who didn't understand what I was saying, then I'll have to use this roundabout way in order to convey my my stance,
Mm-hmm.
especially if I have like a short period of time.
Short period of time is a good keyword. Understand you don't have that much time left.
No, no, no.
So last things I want to talk about is you've stated that you're now a Volcel. Can you maybe
Yeah.
just give some, if you want, of course, you don't have to, but maybe you can just quickly tell us what that's all about.
A Volcel is just somebody who's voluntarily celibate. So an incel is somebody who's involuntarily celibate. They want to have a relationship, but they can't. A Volcel is somebody who's um indifferent, I would say, to the issue, but they are currently celibate. So they can if they want to, but they choose not to. It's a completely voluntary decision. That's how I'll describe it. Yeah.
There is, I think that in the, what would you say is the amount of incels that are actually really have, I mean, it's a really big topic. I don't know if we can go into that in
Okay.
that short amount
Yeah.
of time, but maybe we have another discussion at some point.
Mm.
I really like, now I've seen that Kidology also has come out as a lesbian and also said that due to medication she has her sex drive has been inhibited extremely, and now after getting off of the medication um, she has rediscovered her sex drive. To be honest, like that's all of this has really made me more convinced about her being just like all of the male incels, because uh, from what I've seen, there is a lot of people where I would see them just coming out as gay at some point. and also a lot of people that are really inhibited in their sex drive. And what do you think about that? Since also now you have chosen not to be sexual, like you've basically actively said, I'm okay with not having it.
Yeah. It's
What do you
not. Yeah.
think about that?
Yeah. My position is more kind of like ambivalent. It's not necessarily that I'm against it or for it. It's just kind of like I don't really care anymore. I don't know. Maybe I've gotten older. Maybe I've become
Here, I
more
think
an adult.
I heard that you're really, really young, right? Like you're like
I'm
21, 20?
21. Yeah, I'm 21. Yeah. I'm an old man in incel years. Okay, I'm geriatric in incel years. Yeah, but getting to your main point here.
Yeah.
Man, I've heard so many different things from so many different people. I had one person when I was first starting out my channel saying that a lot of incels are actually trans and they're like eggs, which means somebody who is trans and acts trans but doesn't actually know that they are trans. And they had a whole theory behind that. I've had another person telling me that a lot of incels uh just have sexuality issues or whatever. I've heard so many different arguments from so many different people. I don't know, honestly. I could make theories and I could tell you about different people who I've spoken to who've given me different ideas, but their ideas conflict so much with, like, I've heard complete opposites from different people. I've heard the incels are like the straightest men alive. I've heard they're all homosexual. I've heard so many different things from so many different people. Obviously, all of them aren't anything, but the fact that there are these differing opinions, which are so common, makes me confused. Effectively, I don't know who's what and why who's what. I don't know. If I'm gonna be honest, yeah.
I feel like women have a radar for the sexuality of men. Like they're really, really sensitive to seeing how comfortable or how in touch with his sexuality a guy is. Yeah, because I saw my, like in my life, always my, like I've seen it with other people as well. Like a guy that has like problems with his sexuality in any kind of way, like maybe some anxiety about how he looks, you know, and or something like that, makes him like anxious about sexuality, has always like reduced his chances with women. And also, yeah, that was just a thought. But yeah, we've been talking so long. I know we have to get to an end. Maybe at some other point we can continue this path.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. I can
Yeah,
bring on a few people as well if you want, who have their own opinions on that.
I hate panels. I've
Okay,
sworn to
okay,
myself
no
that I will
problem.
not do panels because I don't feel like it's possible to have a clear strain of thought. It's already difficult to keep it with two people.
Fair enough. Yeah.
It's really hard, but I'm really open to talking to a lot of different people. And yeah, it was a really interesting one, I think. After seeing the videos, it was also the way I expected it to be. You're really a thoughtful guy. You like to think about things, and
I
yeah,
appreciate that.
really cool.
Yeah, yeah, it was an amazing chat. One of the best chats I've probably had on the Blackpill discussion. Because you actually, I don't know, when I talk to people, their critiques are kind of lacking, but you had some proper critiques which I like.
Appreciate it,
That's
man.
always fun. Yeah,
Cool.
yeah.
Yeah, let's stay in touch. I'll probably do my clips. You have seen it maybe on my channel. I'm always
I
clipping
have.
these. Um,
Where do I watch the whole thing? Would that just be on your stream?
yeah, you can just go on my channel and then click on live, and there this
Mm.
thing that we just basically streamed is just going to be uploaded directly.
Okay.
So at some point, I'm also going to start streaming on Twitch or maybe on Kick. I'm not sure on that yet. I don't know what I should think about Kick. I'll have to do some research.
Yeah.
But yeah, for now it's just YouTube, and the clips are in the video section. Um, cool, man. It's not so sure when the next stream is going to be. I'm thinking about doing one next week. Yeah, let's see.
All right. Well, thank you for having me on. I appreciate that very
Thank you
much.
for being on. It was really a pleasure. to everyone watching, thanks for tuning in. Check Vanta out. Subscribe if you haven't done so yet. Take care, everyone.